Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. The moment the last set of footsteps fades down the hall, something in your body recognizes the change before your thoughts do. There is a small, precise loosening at the base of your neck, a lowering not announced but obvious, like a curtain dropping after a performance. You notice the way your hands, which had been attentive and ready, slide away from the edges of things. They find the familiar weight of the couch arm, the grain of the wooden table, the lip of a mug left from earlier. There is no rush to tidy the living room tonight. The dishes may stay as they are until tomorrow, a casual heap that records the evening rather than erases it. Warm light pools from the lamp by the window, uneven and patient. It spills over the back of your chair, over an old jacket thrown casually across it, over a stack of books that look well thumbed at their midsection. The lamp's glow makes the apartment feel sympathetic, as if it understands the difference between presentation and presence. The city beyond the glass breathes in slow, distant rhythms, cars punctuating long pauses, a laugh lifted far away and then absorbed. You listen to that softness without needing to translate it into anything useful. It is background that soothes more than it informs. You become aware of small particulars that during the day were never given the room to be noticed. The sweater on your shoulders is slightly damp from the evening air. The fabric cools where it meets the back of your neck. On the coffee table, a second mug sits with a faint ring of condensation at its base, evidence of shared hot drink or a conversation left open. A folded shirt rests on the arm of the couch, folded the way someone else folds it. Careful, habitual, a familiarity that exists without ceremony. These things are private witnesses. They do not call attention to themselves. They simply are. There is an ease to the way your jaw sets differently now. The muscles that had been taut with attention soften, as if remembering how to be ordinary. You trace the line of a thumb across the rim of your mug and feel the worn glaze, the tiny imperfections that make it yours. You do not rehearse anything for anyone. There is no audience in the room, and your posture, which was once constrained into presentation, arrives at a resting shape that belongs only to you. It is not a performance. It is the slow, careful unburdening of habits accumulated in the daylight. Your memories of the evening keep arriving, not as a sequence demanding analysis, but as soft pictures that move through you, like a film projected on the wall behind where you sit. Laughter that has lost its tension, a glance that didn't need to be explained, a voice you recognized in the crowd, and let slide past without the urge to correct or be corrected. Visibility was tiring in a particular way tonight, necessary and exacting, and now the cost of that visibility is being repaid in stillness. You feel the ghosts of short-lived postures easing. A shoulder that had been held high in attentiveness loosens into the sofa. Hands that clenched around a drink unclench and rest. A breath finally stretching fully through your ribs. There is a gentle disorder to the room that comforts you. Clothes are folded and waiting, not because they must be assigned a closet immediately, but because they exist in this space as if to say, "We were here together once." A stack of plates, one with a smudge of sauce at the edge, is testament to an evening that involved care rather than perfection. On the windowsill, a collection of small things, an enamel pin, a postcard with a scrawled note, a photo tucked in the corner. Catch the lamp's light and reflect it back in diffused bits. Each object holds a soft, private grammar of belonging, a language without the need for clear sentences. You notice the sound of the building settling as the night deepens, pipes click in their habitual cadence. The heater murmurs a small, steady comfort. The clock on the wall marks time not as a demand, but as a companion. You do not measure the minutes against obligations. You simply notice them as a sequence of gentle motions that outlast a single evening. Your phone lies face down on the table, its screen dark and uninterested, an ally in the room's quiet privacy. There is no compulsion to check it, no prickling need, to translate your present into messages or updates. The absence of those demands feels like an allowance. The space is familiar enough to admit softness. You move in it with unremarkable skill, reaching for a knitted throw and drawing it over your knees, more from habit than purpose. The fabric is worn where you tend to rest your hands. Its scent is the combination of laundry days and window air, and the faint trace of a cologne someone once wore here that you like and cannot name. This is the kind of intimacy that requires no performance, simple proximity, the record of shared domestic life in small, ordinary items. It sits settled around you like a halo of non-urgent memories. Thoughts that earlier in the day would have been urgent now unfurl in a leisurely way, like a ribbon left to hang. They come without demand. You catalog them as if touching a familiar object. An image here, a texture there, a mood that refuses to harden into a verdict. It is possible to inhabit these thoughts without deciding anything about them. You let them be present, not to be resolved, but to be witnessed. The night does not force conclusions. It only allows the sense that you are not obliged to perform conclusions for anyone. There is a particular mercy in the quietness of your home tonight. The world beyond your walls continues with its own needs, but inside, privacy functions like a soft border. The apartment is an unspoken agreement between you and whoever else might be part of its life, present in traces, not in spoken contracts. You do not need to translate gestures into statements. The room holds the absence of language with grace. Even your loneliness feels like something permitted, rather than a failure to be fixed. It arrives as a texture, brief and bearable, a note in a larger chord of rest. You find yourself attending to small motions, not because they matter strategically, but because they are quietly satisfying. A candle burns down, not spectacularly but steadily, throwing an uneven shadow across the bookshelf. The light from the lamp shifts as the bulb warms and the glass softens its glare. The second mug cools, then warms again as you refill it and then set it down. The gesture repeating like a private ritual, with no onlookers to witness or critique. These actions hold a steadiness that was absent earlier, when you were being seen. Here they are simply acts with no audience. The body's relinquishment of posture is a slow negotiation rather than a sudden surrender. You let your feet find the place they're most comfortable, allow the weight of yourself to land where it wants, and notice how relief spreads not as an event, but as a fact. You do not need to catalog this relief in words. It is a matter of alignment, of being fewer things at once. The night allows room for that lessening. Less awareness of gaze, less need for explanation, less urgency to justify your presence. Outside, the night keeps its cool distance. Inside, the light is warm and forgiving. The difference between the two is not a battle, but a complement, a soft contrast that highlights the shelter of the room. You stay here, in the in-between, where nothing is required and much is gently acknowledged. This is the beginning of the private time that follows being seen. The slow settling when performance is no longer necessary. When your posture, finally, is entirely yours. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. You notice how small things begin to happen without your consent, like tiny concessions the body makes once the performance is over. The corners of your mouth stop holding a shape they used for polite conversation, stop thinning into the practiced neutrality you wore all day. The skin around your eyes loosens, as if someone has taken invisible pins out of a taut fabric. You don't make a point of it, you only register, in the soft way one notices the end of a song, that something is let go. The light in the living room is low and uneven, a lamp on the dresser, throwing its warm oval across the rug, a smaller shade by the sofa, pooling color onto the arm. The bulbs are familiar, the kind you chose because they make shirts look honest and skin look like a possession of its own. Shadows gather in the corners, the way they have always gathered here, forgiving, uninterested in drama. Outside, the city keeps to a distant rhythm, occasional headlights passing, the slow sigh of an elevator somewhere down. The hall. Inside, the air has the plain honesty of a home that has held people and late coffee and phone screens. It feels private in a way that does not need to be justified. There is a second mug on the small table, an afterimage of presence. It bears a faint ring where a cold coaster once sat, and a lipstick smudge you do not bother to interpret. You run a fingertip along the rim and find the porcelain is cool. The gesture is small and automatic, like checking a pocket for keys. Objects stitch a night together, a folded sweater over the back of a chair, the book you never finished, a scarf bunched up like it was set down mid-conversation. They are all hints that someone else has shared this evening with you, or that you have shared parts of yourself in ways that did not require explanation. The domestic traces are not tidy, they are honest. Your hands rest on your lap. The knuckles that tightened at work, at the bar, wherever you move through scrutiny, no longer think. They must prepare for expression. Fingers uncurl around a mug you warm between your palms. The ceramic carries heat in a slow, steady way that presses out a line of tension along your forearms. You find the habit of adjusting your watch loosens. It sits where it does because it always has, not because you are timing out attention. The act of taking off a ring, placing it on the bedside tray, is ordinary and quiet. No proclamation follows, only the soft clink of metal against glass. You do not think about the words you said earlier. They sit like paper tucked inside a book, present, legible, no longer needing to be held up to the light. The expression that softened across your face took place somewhere between a text left unsent and a laugh that lasted one breath too long. You feel the after movement of having been visible, small reliefs, a fluttering remainder, satisfaction threaded with a kind of tiredness that isn't unpleasant. The body that spent hours calibrating tone and posture now allows a different attention, one that is patient, slow, and not interested in proof. There is music somewhere in the flat, not loud, an old record or a playlist you opened and left to wander. It plays like a companion who does not ask for responses, the notes filling negative space without requiring you to fill it in. When you tilt your head, the skin along your jaw lets out a soundless breath. The shoulders drop, not abruptly, but as if gravity reclaimed its rights. You find yourself leaning into the sofa, the fabric giving in the places it always does, molding to a familiar shape. The couch remembers how you sit. It knows the small indentation along the cushion that matches your weight and your way of resting. There is comfort in being known by things, by the memory of your shape. You catch your reflection in the dark window. The streetlights make a sheen on the glass. Your face is a softened print against a backdrop of distant motion. Your expression is private in the way of someone who has finished performance for the night. The muscles around your mouth do a slow rearrangement, aligning with no one's expectations. There's a thinness where your smile used to be, but it is not a trimmed thing. It is simply less animated, more settled. Your eyes hold a quiet that is not empty but deliberate, an attention turned inward without urgency. Small rituals take place now without fanfare. You fold the sweater across your knees, smoothing the fabric with slow, patient hands. You set the magazine aside, not because you have reached its end, but because it is pleasing to let the paper rest where it is. A pair of earrings sit on the ottoman, one left behind in the rush of getting home. You pick them up and feel their weight, the cool metal sliding across your fingers, then set them down in a little dish without ceremony. Everything here gives and takes in equal measure. The gestures are as simple as breathing. The apartment smells faintly of lemon and rain, the trace of a cleaner, and the dampness the city carries back inside at night. It is neutral, familiar, the scent of a place that hosts life and does not try to hide it. You breathe in, and the air moves over the parts of you that had held tight all day: the throat, the sternum, the small knots in the neck. The feeling is not dramatic. It is as if tiny pebbles have rolled off a shoe, one by one. You notice an ease in the muscles around your eyes that you did not schedule, only acknowledge. The forehead, that map of lines traced by worry and thinking, smooths in a way that feels unspectacular and entirely enough. There are photos on the mantle collectioned with uneven edges, laughter caught at the edge of a frame, a hand resting on a kitchen counter, a night with too much conversation and the exact right kind of silence afterward. They speak of belonging without naming it. You look at one that has someone else's jacket hanging over a chair and understand, without commentary, that there are people who have lived parts of nights with you. There is a warmth threaded through those images, a familiarity that does not insist on definition. The memory of conversation threads gently into the present, not demanding retelling. You move slowly because movement itself no longer bears the weight of impression. The lamp beside you changes the room's shapes, as if you are watching a slow tide of light. Paperbacks cast softer shadows now. The city sounds have become a distant wallpaper: a train pass, a dog's bark, a laugh caught and released. They are not urgent, they belong to an outside that does not intrude. This interior is private and safe because you have chosen it to be so. There is repose in that choice, a quiet sovereignty that does not require explanation or defense. What remains is small, domestic, and true. A blanket is folded across your knees. A neighbor's key fob clinks in a dish by the door. A stack of dishes waits. In the sink, a record of a shared meal that could be labeled in a dozen affectionate ways, none of which matter now. The room holds these traces without prioritizing them. They exist like memorials to evenings that have passed, and evenings yet to come, ordinary and carrying their own kind of grace. Your face continues to release its careful tension, as if something inside you approves of the ease but offers nothing dramatic in praise. The change is subtle enough that you might miss it if you were looking for announcement. It is instead a quiet unclenching, unremarked upon, known only by the way your jaw fits back into place and your cheeks let the day go. You remain awake and attentive in a way that is soft and unhurried, and the night continues to widen around this small piece, asking nothing and giving space in return. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. You cross the threshold, and the room already knows you. The lamp by the armchair has been left on its low, orange setting, a small pool of light that keeps the corners soft rather than sharp. Your coat drops to the back of the chair, with the familiar weight it always has when you let it go. There is a second mug on the kitchen counter, a small thumbprint of steam that has gone away. The ceramic still warm from earlier. You stand for a moment in the doorway and feel the slackening that comes after a long evening of attention. You notice the looseness around your shoulders before you notice anything else. The air inside is a touch cooler than your skin, but not so cool it pulls at you. It simply reminds you of the difference between being on and being off. The apartment holds traces of the day in unremarkable arrangements. A folded sweater on the back of a chair, a stack of dishes with a spoon laid across the top, like it has always belonged there. A paperback with its spine softened from being read in small, persistent sessions. The curtains are partly open, and the window glass keeps a faint reflection of the lamp, layered over the city lights beyond. Outside, the night is deep and patient. Somewhere a bus sighs, a neighbor returns and closes a door. Distant voices fold into the shape of the street. Inside, the sound becomes more of a hush than a disruption. It is quiet that contains rather than exposes, a sound that makes room. You move through the apartment without hurry. You take off your shoes and tuck them under the console table, as if putting them away were an act that meant nothing and everything at once. The movement is ordinary, almost automatic, the kind of small domestic choreography that signals the end of a role. The carefulness of ironed collars and checked postures can be exchanged, point by point, for the soft give of fabric and the sinking comfort of home. There is no exit from what happened earlier. It is simply no longer the business of this light. Whatever was observed, whatever was watched or watched back, is now a memory resting on the shelves along with the mugs. You notice details that would have been noisy during the day. The worn place on the arm of the couch where your elbow has always found purchase. The faint ring of a glass on the coffee table. A postcard folded, face down. Each thing is a small assurance that life is not performance. The room offers no questions, only the fact of its arrangements. It does not read your posture. It does not weigh your choice of sweater or the timing of your messages. There is a relief in being in a space that contains those ordinary leftovers without commentary. The quiet seems to be made of that permission, not spoken but felt. Light falls in gentle wedges. The lamp throws a soft triangle across the rug, and the rest of the room slides deeper into neutral shadow. The lamp breathes slow somehow, as if it too has been in motion all evening, and is now allowed a minute of rest. You watch the shadow of a curtain move slightly with a draft from the window and find the movement pleasingly unremarkable. The window glass keeps a thin mirror of the interior. For the moment, the lights in the glass are more intimate than the lights beyond it. The city glows distant and democratic in its own way, but the reflection of the lamp and your shoulders in the pane feels closer. Things multiply in that softened mirror. The second mug again, the folded sweater, the pattern of fingerprints on the wooden armrest. They are not evidence for anything. They are companions. There is the small domestic scent of clean fabric and soap, the faint tang of the street that came in earlier and is now only a memory on the soles of your shoes. It is not a perfume space, not curated. It is lived in, which is to say it is honest. The fabric of the couch is familiar against your skin when you settle into it. A texture that has been shaped by evenings like this, evenings where speech is optional and presence is enough. You notice how the cushions sink in the places where your weight meets them, how the upholstery holds the history of hands and small movements. There is comfort in surfaces that have been used. Your phone is face down on the table, not because you have made a decree against it, but because you have placed it there and left it. The little quiet symbol of connectivity is not a demand now. It is a possible thing among many. You do not reach for it. The conversation that required being concise and exacting has been folded into the day, and here there is room for sentences without edge. There is no need to translate yourself for anyone in this light. You are free to watch the way dust collects in the lamp beam, to trace the worn pattern of the rug with a fingertip, to let your attention rest on the shape of the room, as if it were a map of your evening. You are aware of your breathing in the same kind of way you might be aware of the rhythm of a clock. It is not metered by anyone else. There is a softness to how your shoulders drop as you permit your body to follow the evening's tame demands. You do not perform a kindness or an emotion. You inhabit calm in its unadorned state. The second mug is not an accusation that you needed company tonight, nor is it a proof of anything. It is simply there, a trace of another presence that has already folded into the night. The space does not insist on accounting. It accepts the existence of that mug with the same nonchalance with which it accepts the lamp or the sweater. In that kind of ordinary acceptance, there is a trust that needs no words. The kitchen is visible from where you sit. The counter is scattered with the residue of the evening's tasks, an empty jar, a knife whose blade catches the lamplight, a towel half hung, each object unremarkable and therefore safe. The sink hums with the quiet history of water. You let your gaze wander over it as if cataloging small, trusted witnesses to the day's work. A plate sits drawing on the rack, striped with a shadow where something used to sit. You imagine, briefly and without pressure, the night continuing in the same gentle way. Simple motions, small repetitions, the kind of acts that do not call attention to themselves, but that accumulate into care. You notice the way the room holds your body. It does not require explanation or apology. The furniture, the light, the little misaligned things all seem to conspire to provide a shape to your presence that is neither performance nor exposure. There is a domestic grammar at play. You enter, you unfasten, you settle. Each step is ordinary and tender. The architecture of the evening is made of these small acts, not grand gestures. There is a kind of private legality to being here, an implicit understanding that nothing will be judged for staying imperfect. A photograph on the shelf catches your eye. A group of faces in soft focus, laughter frozen into a shape that only needs to be known to be true. The image is not a proclamation. It is a quiet testament to shared evenings and private jokes, to the fact of people who will notice in their own time. The presence of those faces is a warm thing, less a spotlight than a pillow. They make the apartment feel inhabited in a way that surpasses solitary living. You do not have to call them or announce anything. The photograph is enough for this moment. A gentle reminder that your life contains threads that run beyond this room, without pulling them taut. There is an ease to your hands when you pick up the second mug, the way your fingers close around it like a small ritual without pretense. The mug's surface is warm, and it fits into a place in your palm that seems made for the unspoken company. You hold it there and listen to the quiet, noting how the room accepts your presence without registering it as an act. The evening offers no audience, only the simple fact of being here, and you let go of any neat performance. You are permitted to be a body in a room, unlabeled and not explained, just visible enough to exist. The lamp beside the couch throws a small, uneven pool of light over the coffee table. Its bulb is warm enough that the pull of the dark window beyond feels like a gentle invitation, rather than a gap to cross. You sink deeper into the cushions, not with a hurry, but with a kind of deliberate release, as if some part of you is remembering how to let go without being asked. Your shoulders, which had been held high all day in a shape practiced for other people, fold inward with the ease of a hinge finally given slack. The posture you carried for hours, the tilt that kept your expressions neat, the steady cadence in small talk, starts to blur at the edges. You notice first in the face, the tiny lines around your mouth loosening, the jaw unclenching in the way it does when there's no one left to read. There is a second mug on the table, its rim cooled enough to be safe to touch. A faint crescent of tea left behind. The handle still smells faintly of citrus, and the surface has a ring, where it sat for a while, before it was set down without ceremony. It is a small domestic trace, ordinary but full, a witness to the company that was present earlier. Nearby, a sweater is folded, in a way that is comfortable rather than careful, the sleeves tucked into the body, without the precise smoothing that once meant presentable. You remember draping it over a chair with the absent-mindedness of someone who trusts that it will be there in the morning. That small trust sits in the room like a soft weight. It doesn't demand performance. It simply exists. Your phone is face down on the armrest, its screen a dark, obedient surface. You feel the residue of content exchanged earlier. Texts that were hopeful, messages that were quick and then slow. None of them require an immediate polish. Without the need to respond, the urgency that had been humming at the back of your throat slowly quiets to a yellowed The music you had playing has dwindled to a low, familiar record of background sound that the city outside keeps time to. A bus braking, laughter carried a block over, the faraway clink of glasses. Inside, the rooms breathe. The plaster has its own tiny sounds, the kind of settling noise that belongs to buildings that have held more than one occupant and grown comfortable with that load. You press a thumb into the soft edge of the couch and feel the upholstery give. The fabric has a scent that reads like clean linen and a faint hint of the day, the dampness from a walk earlier, the delicate trace of someone else's cologne overlapping with your shampoo. These fragrances sit layered, a record of proximity rather than a statement. There are framed photographs on the shelf above the TV, not displayed with a curated precision, but arranged in the way people who share spaces arrange things, slightly askew, overlapping, held together more by habit than by design. The pictures show hands rested on knees, a doorway with light pouring through, a cheap birthday cake with candles pulled at one side. They are small, private reminders that warmth does not always look like grand gestures. You notice the way your laugh fades when you're alone in a room that still smells like company. Not that the laughter disappears, but that it loses the crispness that used to announce itself to others. It becomes a thinner sound, softer at the edges, a private thing that belongs only to you. It is not a concession, it is simply quieter. You find yourself smiling without shaping the expression for anyone else, a motion that feels both new and honest. The habit of tailoring your tone, of measuring your words against an invisible set of expectations, eases. You let the cadence of your breath set the tempo, instead of the watchful cadence you kept during daylight hours. There are small tactile sensations that anchor this change. Your sleeves are rolled up to the forearm, revealing skin that catches the lamp glow in a way that makes the nights feel more intimate. The coolness at the wrist is a gentle contrast, a reminder of the night air that slips through the window when you crack it open for a moment. The breeze smells faintly of wet pavement and the nearby subway line. It comes in with the sound of distant tires over the bridge and slides across your skin like a soft exhale. You let your fingers rest on the arm of the couch and watch the play of light on the finish of the coffee table. There is no need to advertise attention. You allow the small, precise moments of the evening to exist without commentary. A stack of dishes in the sink sits like a small monument to the evening that happened. Plates with the ghost of sauce, a fork with a smear of something sweet. They are not an accusation, they are a trace of living in a way that is shared and ordinary. You could wash them now or later or leave them until tomorrow. The choice is unpressured, and that absence of pressure is a palpable thing. It settles into the marrow. There is a freedom in not having to justify the timing of simple acts. The apartment feels like a place that can hold that freedom without comment. You find your hands wandering to the ring of keys on the table, turning them around the way people do when they need the rhythm of their fingers to match the rhythm in their chest. Key metal is cool and familiar, and you set them down with an absent flick into place. There is a small scar along the knuckle that you don't think about until now, a faint white line that has been there for years and marks some quiet domestic accident. It triggers no story, no need to explain. It is simply part of the map of you. Thoughts arrive in loose, unedited bursts. A recollection of a comment made earlier that felt sharp turns into an observation of how your face relaxed when the conversation shifted. A memory of practicing a smile for an unfamiliar camera softens into the image of hands clumsily arranging candles on a windowsill. You watch these small fragments without needing to stitch them into a narrative of self-presentation. The work of calibrating tone and expression, the careful selections you made to be legible to others, feels like an outfit you have finally taken off. You don't fold it neatly. You let it lie where it fell. Outside, lights wink from apartments above and across the street. Curtains are drawn back in places, a neighbor's television glow, hinting at someone else's quiet. The city has a habit of looking like a constellation of private moments, each with its own volume and speed. In your place, the volume has lowered. The need to adjust for anyone else's gaze has diminished to a comfortable hum. You become aware of the elasticity of privacy, how it can stretch wide enough to hold both small mistakes and tender silences. There is a particular kind of safety in having the lights low, in not needing to make anything visible beyond what you choose. You pick up the second mug, turning it to feel the weight, noting the bruise where a chip had been knocked off weeks before. No one reproofs the mugs in this place. They accumulate history. You set it down again with a soft sound, not worried about it finding balance on the table. There is nothing to announce. There is nothing to tidy into an image. The room is content to be a little messy, a little human, a little undone. As the night continues, the edges of the day soften. Your movements become smaller, more economical. Even your thoughts travel in shorter routes, visiting places and leaving quickly, without needing to tidy them for anyone else. You let sentences trail off mid-thought and feel no compulsion to complete them. The energy that had gone into performance, into curtailing, intonation, into smoothing reactions, into maintaining a stance that read as calm and controlled, recedes into quiet. What remains is honest and modest. A lamp's glow, a mug's ring, a sweater folded with casual affection. The room around you holds these things with the same gentle indifference as a friend who has stopped asking questions and instead simply sits, close enough to be company and far enough to let you be. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. The lamp beside the sofa throws a warm pool of light over a scatter of things that say, "You have been here," and that other people have been here too. A second mug cools on the coffee table, its ring left like an invitation you do not have to answer. A sweater is folded over the back of a chair, with a kind of casual precision that means it will be there tomorrow, not arranged to impress anyone in the meantime. Outside the dark glass, the city is a soft, distant breathing. Inside, the light is uneven and generous, revealing the small unevennesses of the room that you like, and the ones you do not mind ignoring. You have been carrying a posture all day that wasn't necessary for the moment you are in now. It sits in your shoulders like a familiar weight, the kind that once helped you negotiate rooms and conversations and the way others might read you. The weight is not painful. It is simply present, an old tool that you set down here because there is no longer an audience watching. In the act of loosening your shoulders, there's a kind of release that is neither dramatic nor theatrical. It happens in the half second when your hands stop doing something, setting down a book, turning the mug to see if there is any tea left. And you notice they are still. The stillness is small and private, and it feels like an earned silence. Your breathing finds a quieter rhythm when the phone is face down in the other room, and the messages that arrived earlier fold into the background like a song receding. There is a particular relief, subtle and exact, in not having to be legible. You move in the apartment with the knowledge that your small adjustments, a blanket pulled up higher, a knee tucked against the sofa arm, the way you twist the tassel on the throw, are for no one's appraisal. The curtains are half closed, catching the reflection of the lamp and turning it into a dim, safe brightness. The window itself shows you a softened city, a row of streetlights a little too bright, the occasional car a slow comet. You watch the glass the way you might watch a body of water, seeing yourself reflected and deciding, without argument, that what glows in the room is enough. There are traces of other people around that carry no demands. A folded note tucks into the spine of a book. You were reading together this afternoon. You remember the laugh that followed the scribbled line and how the room felt in that moment. Full and casual, a living thing. Now the note sits unexamined at your elbow, and its existence is simply part of the texture. You like that. You like that the presence of someone else can be domestic without insisting on being explained. The second mug, half a ring of tea, the sweater over the chair. These are companions in a quiet way. reminders of chosen warmth that do not require performance. Sound in the room is small. The refrigerator hums like a steady thought. Somewhere down the block, a train sighs through its schedule and becomes another layer of distance. The building settles. There is a tiny click as the pipes cool, a patient contraction that has no urgency to it. You let these sounds exist alongside the lamp's glow and the smell of slightly worn fabric. The scent is not dramatic. No incense, no overpowering candle. Just the neutral comfort of home and the faint trace of the city clinging to a coat. It is enough to outline the evening without asking you to fill in any narrative that is not yours. You have lived the day with a kind of attention that often had to be held up for others, seeing and being seen, selecting what to share and what to leave folded inside. That labor recedes here. The room accepts you in the way rooms accept those who live in them, with a softness that only domestic spaces can give, because they know your rhythms. Your feet find the familiar fray in the rug as if remembering an old map. The fabric of the sofa is worn where you always sit. The arm gives a little under your weight, offering a private cadence of support. There is no need to adjust your posture into a shape that is read as tidy or acceptable. Posture relaxes from performance into the simple physics of comfort. Thoughts wander in the empty spaces you allow them. They are small, not urgent like paper boats moving across a quiet pool. You notice them without chasing. A memory of a face, an echo of a phrase you used to rehearse. A detail from the day that seems to make less sense, now that it is alone with you. Each of these passes without pulling you into explanation. You do not have to translate the day back into something comprehensible to others. You can let the impressions hang in the room, like the light from the lamp, visible but not demanding interpretation. They sit gently alongside the household objects that hold no expectations. There is a particular pleasure in the freedom of being unreadable. It is not a secrecy that shuts people out. Rather, it is a privacy that lets you be tender with yourself. You care for small things, rubbing the spot on the arm of the chair until it is smoother, tucking the blanket more closely around a knee, stacking a pair of books in the exact order. They will be easy to reach tomorrow. The motions are unremarkable and domestic, the kind of caring that goes unnoticed and therefore feels generous. In doing them, you are practicing a language that does not require explanation, the tender arrangement of what keeps you comfortable. A photograph leans against a lamp base, its corners softened by being handled. It shows a laugh that you remember and do not need to describe. The memory in the photograph is not an invitation to perform that laugh again. It is simply evidence that warmth existed in the sequence of days. You place a hand near the frame and do not pick it up. The contact is enough to acknowledge what is there without making it public. The objects around you are like quiet witnesses, not interrogators, not audiences. The night air that brushes the sill carries the coolness of streets and trees, and when you draw it in, it cools the skin at your wrists where the lamp's heat has been softest. The boundary between warm interior and cool exterior is gentle, a reminder that the world extends beyond these walls in ways that are not pressing. You are part of that broader, quieter world. Your edges are clear but no longer sharp. The contrast is restful, dim inside, dark and soft outside. It permits you to be both present and private at once. Relief arrives without ceremony. It sits at your collarbone like a small, steady weight that is not a burden. There is no need to explain the relief to anyone. It is enough that you recognize it in the way your jaw unclenches and in the way tasks feel unnecessary. You breathe and your hands rest on the fabric of the sofa, feeling the tiny pulls and seams that map out where you sit tonight. In this modest geography, everything is forgiven for being used and a little worn. The room is a kind of forgiveness without words, an acceptance that does not require reciprocation or justification. Slowly, the edges of the day soften. You notice the pattern of light at the corner of the rug, how it moves as the lamp shifts slightly in its socket, how the window reflects a star or a distant neon blur. The quiet feels earned, like a medal you did not have to show anyone. It is not a final state, but a particular way of being in a night that has already asked you much. You remain present to the small, unperformative life around you. The second mug cooling, the sweater, waiting patiently, the lamp that keeps one corner lit. The relief of being unreadable settles into the room as if it always belonged there, and you let it be, without explanation, without performance. You let the sofa take you in the way it always insists it can, the cushions making the small concessions they have practiced for years. There is a curve at your lower back where the fabric has softened just enough to remember your shape. Your shoulders loosen into the armrest that is dented from evenings like this, from evenings with stories told and silence shared, and the casual commuting of hands over familiar surfaces. The lamp on the side table throws a pool of light that is uneven and forgiving. It spills across a stack of books, touches the rim of a mug you carried in from the kitchen, and falls short of the glass that holds the street's distant glow. Outside, the night is a cool, faraway thing, a different temperature pressed behind the window pane. You are not arranged. You are simply in a position you did not choose for an audience. Your legs have uncrossed without dramatics, one foot tucked under your thigh, the other resting flat, toes flexed against the rug in a minor tally of sensation. There is a sense in the looseness of your shirt, the top button undone absent-mindedly earlier and now forgotten, that the careful lines you kept throughout the day have been softened by a private exactitude. The fabric at your wrist is turned slightly from where you once twisted it to hide the tremor of nerves. Now you notice the texture of denim against your skin, the small softness where it has worn thin at the knee. It is a quiet map of habit and comfort. A second mug sits on the coffee table with a thin crescent at the bottom, the residue of someone else's company, or perhaps the way evenings end when people come and go. It is not an absence that needs naming. It is simply proof of warmth that was present here, of a hand that set down a cup and left this ring of it like punctuation. Nearby, a jacket is draped over the back of a chair, one sleeve hanging imperfectly, a braid of scarf tucked into the crook where the arm meets the back. The scarf smells faintly of rain and the city. Nothing strong, only the gentle memory of outside air, and the scent lingers in the space between lamplight and window. The radiator cycles, a soft domestic groan, and your chest follows that pattern without deliberation. It is an unremarked rhythm, nothing to analyze, only to acknowledge by virtue of being present. You notice where the blanket rests against your calves. Its rougher weave at the edge is a familiar friction that has learned the shape of your evenings. The sheet of a print on the wall tilts a degree from where it caught the vibration of earlier laughter, and the small dent in the armrest reflects a night's worth of leaning into the furniture as if it were a friend. The room is filled with evidences of ordinary life, a pile of folded laundry at the foot of the chair, a stack of dishes drying quietly in the sink, a lamp that hums its low consent. There is a tenderness to the way the space holds your rest. It is not a public performance, nor is it staged for approval. The curtain hangs halfway closed, catching the city's smudged reflections and breaking them into pieces that look for a moment like watercolor. The dark glass becomes a second, softer room, where the lights of other apartments blink back in no particular arrangement. You watch one window across the way, where a television's glow paints a rectangle on the curtains. For a sliver of time, you consider the rhythm of lives parallel to yours, each person laying down burdens as the night settles, but you do not try to name those burdens. You simply notice the ambient companionship of people who are also letting the day compress into stillness. Your hands rest on your thighs, palms warmed by residual body heat, fingers loosely curled around nothing. You feel the coolness of the ceramic mug between your fingertips when you lift it, the porous glaze mapping fine lines to your skin, and you listen to the slight clink as it meets the saucer. There is pleasure in these small, mundane acts that have no audience. They are private rituals of being, as ordinary and as consequential as tying a shoelace after stepping in puddles. The playlist on the speaker has been paused in a place that is almost a conversation. Music that knows how to be background and refuse demand. A slow current that rides the quiet and makes the room feel fuller without requiring you to contribute. Light moves across the floor, shifting with the minute changes in the lamp's glow. Shadows settle into familiar hollows, embracing the spaces behind books and under the coffee table. You notice how the room breathes without your intervention, settling into the night with a patience that feels like an old friend. There is a softness to things that were earlier kept crisp. The edge of the throw pillow no longer sharp. The pages of the book splayed an inch apart where you left a bookmark. The bookmark is nothing dramatic. It is a receipt folded in two, a little rectangle of everyday life that has been pressed into service as an improvised placeholder. It bears the faint smudge of ink, and you allow yourself a small amusement at the improvisation of private habits. You remember the posture you held for much of the day, careful, precise, measured, to fit around the people and places that required it. Now that posture has dissipated into something that answers only to your own comfort. The body's defenses have been set aside. Your jaw relaxes. The tightness at the base of your neck unknots in a way that doesn't announce itself. You notice how the skin at the inner elbow feels cool, where the light doesn't reach it, how a faint prickle travels along the arm when you move the hand a degree. These details are not tasks to be fixed. They are simply sensations that arrive and dissolve, like the low notes of a piece of music. A lamp's shadow falls across the table where a postcard sits, its back smudged with a hurried line of handwriting. It is addressed to you in a hand that bends into familiar quirks, a message from a chosen person who once visited, who once stayed for a time and left these small imprints. The card's edges are softened by being passed from hand to hand and placed down in too many places to count. It feels like a proof that you belong to a world that extends beyond this apartment without needing to be performed for. The postcard does not require explanation. It is simply part of the room's quiet liturgy. Outside, the city exhales. A bus sighs, a pair of distant voices overlap for a moment and then dissolve. A cat slips along a rooftop, somewhere beyond the visible. Inside, the kettle's memory lingers in a faint mineral trace at the bottom of the mug, and the echo of the evening lives in the worn patch of the armrest, where you always rest your elbow. There is a safety in how ordinary things accumulate. The chipped spoon in the drawer, the magnet that holds up a grocery list, the small jar of matches you never think to light. These are the modest monuments to evenings lived without performance. You do not enact a conclusion. The room does not arrange itself into a tidy resolution. Instead, it stays with you in its imperfect way, softening, slowing, allowing the body to settle into positions it avoided earlier. Stillness becomes natural, not practiced. It curls up in the crook of your familiar furniture and asks nothing of you but presence. You remain aware, quietly attentive to the little movements of the house. The night presses gently at the window. The city's distant pulse, a kind of lullaby that keeps time without insisting. You are here in this domestic quiet, held by things that have no reason to judge you. No need to parse your day. It is enough, for now, to be noticed only by the room and the low lamplight. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. You sit with the lamp low and find your shoulders have let go of something they have been holding all day. The light pools on the coffee table in a slow, uneven circle, and the rest of the room makes its gentle decisions around that small, honest glow. There is an extra mug to one side, cooling, the rim marked by a finger smear. A sweater is folded over the back of a chair, with the kind of nonchalance that says it has been used and will be used again. Nothing is staged, nothing expects an answer. Across the room, the window reflects the lamp, like a patient, tired friend. And beyond that glass, the city breathes in muffled phrases. Tires in a distant radio. Someone's laughter seamed to the night. Those sounds used to tug at something in you. The urge to respond, to curate, to perform. Tonight they are background, like traffic in a painting. They remind but do not insist. The edges of earlier conversations blur, in the way light blurs at dusk. Sentences you might have rehearsed are already softening into the small shapes of memory, no longer sharp enough to demand correction or defense. You notice how the apartment holds traces of other evenings. A coaster with a ring of condensation, a book face down where a page was bookmarked, a jacket slung over the banister that still smells faintly of someone else's evening. Those traces are neither proof nor performance. They are evidence of life lived in the same rooms. They carry warmth without explanation. You have lived among these people and their belongings, and those presences hover like friendly punctuation. They do not require you to justify what they suggest. You do not need to tidy or account. Domestic familiarity means leaving a space where things can be messy and still belong. The phone is face down beside the lamp. Notifications pulse in the world outside your view. But the top of the device is an unlit plane you can ignore. Earlier, it demanded so many small answers, acknowledgments, jokes, clarifications, the neat rituals of staying visible. Those obligations once tugged at the sleeve of your nervousness. But now they sit like unopened postcards on a table. You can read them unhurriedly later or not at all. The act of not answering immediately is not rebellion. It is a kind of permission you grant yourself because the night allows slack. There is comfort in the slow uptake of attention, in letting the need to finish sentences ease into the room like softened light. You allow memories to come and go, to behave like weather. A laugh, a particular tilt of a head, a flared indignation that was once urgent. These pass through you without requiring a reply. They arrive as impressions, color, temperature, the way a hand rested at a hip, or a voice warmed in a way that only you noticed. Those images no longer ask that you defend them or explain them. They have shrunk to the size of thumbnail paintings hung in the private gallery of your mind. You can look at them closely if you like, or let them hang at the periphery while you focus on the quiet of your room. There is an ease to this unpressured remembering. You find a place on the couch and fold into it slowly, noticing the worn shape of the cushion as if it remembers you. The fabric makes a small sound when you shift. Your feet find their usual spot on the rug, where the thread has become an anecdote between your toes. Familiarity tonight is an embrace that does not patter with expectation. It is steady and unglamorous and more tender than any performance could be. Your mind, which earlier had been busy cataloging and composing, now returns like an animal to a den. It blinks at the dim, smells the residue of soap and someone's unperfumed lotion on a scarf, and it eases. Events from earlier, an exchange of a look across a room, the quiet catching of each other's hands, float through, without any imperative, to script a future response. You notice that you are not tallying what was said or mentally rehearsing lines. Instead, the moments are present like found objects on a shelf. A small stone, a pressed leaf, each significant but not demanding. They are allowed to be as they were, unretouched. The clock on the shelf ticks with an unhurried patience. It does not hurry you. You watch its hand move and feel time as a soft current rather than an electric shock. The evening stretches into the kind of way a long, soft fabric does, the weave visible if you look close, but otherwise simply pleasant to rest upon. Tenderness sits in corners, the crease in a chair where a neighbor once leaned. the faint coffee stain on a napkin, twisted into a small, familiar map. Those marks are not blemishes. They are the record of ordinary mutual care. There is warmth in that record that needs no explanation. You think of the conversations that used to play on a loop in your head, the ones you believed required continual tending. They have become, tonight, like photographs, left in the rain long enough for the harsh lines to wash away. Edges bleed, contrasts soften, faces become more about presence than performance. The urge to answer, to correct, to tidy words into neat boxes fades because the weight of being seen has already been borne. You gave what you could, and the rest can remain unlabeled, comfortable in its vagueness. There is a rhythm to the small domestic tasks you allow yourself now. You rinse the mug and set it to dry, not as penance, but out of a quiet pleasure, an order that is gentle and unpretentious. You fold the sweater a little neater than it was, not because it must be perfect, but because the motion is familiar and grounds you. Your hands, which earlier might have been clenched in performance, now move in easy, patient loops. Each small act is an ordinary ritual that sustains, rather than demands. The room seems to collect your unspoken things and keep them safe. A stack of mail becomes not a list of obligations, but a small pile of potential distraction that you can sift through. Later, if you like. The lamp casts a shadow along the wall, where a photograph sits in a crooked frame, its image softened by the dusk. Those outlines are private and quiet, like the memory of someone's laughter that still lingers past the moment when it was new. They do not ask to be explained. They simply are present, and that presence is enough. You rest with the knowledge that visibility once required formality of you, angles, edges, explanations, and that tonight those requirements have been rented out to the dark. There is a relief in the unneeded performance. You do not practice your speech in the mirror. You do not imagine each sentence you might have said differently. Instead, you allow the recollections to dissolve into something gently unstructured. They become warmth, texture, a slow sigh exhaled into the room. Outside, the night deepens in temperature and sound. The building settles with the tiny domestic sounds of central heating and pipes adjusting. The city's distant conversation becomes less concerned with you. Inside, the apartment is a container for small mercies. An extra mug cooling without fuss. A sweater that smells like someone else's commute. A bookmark poised at an unread paragraph. Those mercies remind you that life need not be a continual performance to be meaningful. Quiet domesticity holds its own kind of intimacy. One that lives into the ordinary, the unremarkable, the steadfast. You breathe and find that the breath is even. The past conversations hold less charge now, their sharpness worn away by the gentleness of evening, and the small, habitual things that hold space while nothing else demands it. Memories lose their edges, and in that loss, they become kinder companions. They sit with you, not as tasks to be completed, but as part of the room's soft architecture. There is nothing left to perform, and that absence is not empty. It is full of slow, private relief. You move slowly enough that the room seems to take notice without needing to intervene. The door closes with a soft finality, not loud, not announcing anything, simply marking the boundary between whatever came before and this small interior that makes no demands. Light from the lamp by the armchair pools across the side table, warm and uneven. It finds the worn spot in the upholstery and lingers there, making a small island of color in a field of dim. The rest of the apartment folds into softer shadows, shapes suggested rather than defined. Outside, the city keeps its low, steady hum, a distance of small engines and occasional footsteps, but inside the air is still and forgiving. You notice the difference in the way your jaw rests when no one is reading the line of it, the way your hands soften when there is nothing to explain. There are familiar extras in this room that mean someone else has been here, or that someone else lives here, with you into the ways that matter. 2 mugs on the counter, one with a dried ring where a forgotten cup sat overnight, a jacket draped across the back of a chair, sleeves easing outward like someone who left in a hurry, and trusted it would be right where they left it. A stack of dishes in the sink, a small leaning tower that will wait. These things do not demand any narrative from you tonight. They are simple facts, quiet traces, that do not need to be justified. Their presence feels like a kind of shelter, proof that life can be shared in small, ordinary ways, without spectacle, without the constant rearrangement of how you present yourself. The room keeps them without comment and keeps you without expectation. You settle into the chair. The cushion remembers the shape of you, the fabric familiar and worn in reassuring places. Your sweater slips easily against shoulders that no longer hold themselves at attention, that no longer sit at the edge of a conversation. There is a little cool air along your forearms where sleeves have ridden up. That coolness is clean and neutral. It brushes across skin and reminds you of outside without pulling you toward it. Your fingers find the rim of the mug, left warm by earlier use. The drink within is only slightly hot now, the kind of temperature that invites long, slow sips rather than urgency. You hold it with both hands because the weight is soft and honest, not performative. The steam fogs the nearby window for a moment. Then the condensation settles and the world outside becomes more distant. A blur of lights like a memory you can choose to watch or not. The glass in the window reflects things in a way that flattens detail and lets texture remain. Your face there is followed by the outline of the lamp and the vague geometry of books stacked sideways on the shelf. The reflection is not an assessment. It is a passive companion. You look at it and can let small things be true, without having to explain why they are true. The curtains hang heavy, their edges catching more light inside than the street sends up, which feels deliberate, as if the room has wrapped itself in a soft, private skin. Privacy here is not hush, it is gentle insulation. You breathe, and the breath is not a performance. It does not need to convince anyone of anything. Your attention slips into the small domestic motions you deferred earlier in the evening. A book that was half read is turned face down, not because you finished it, but because you like where the page holds your place. A pair of socks folded near the foot of the bed are picked up and set on the chair, not neatly, simply placed so that their presence is acknowledged and then allowed to be. The small acts are not chores tonight. They are the uncomplicated decisions you make for yourself in a room that will accept them without commentary. There is a kind of relief in moving through these things when there is no audience to perform for, no expectation to manage. It feels like being off stage in the most generous sense. Everything is unchanged by your lack of presentation, and that unchangedness is soft and steady. In the kitchen, the second mug catches your eye, pale at the lip where tea once stained it. You think of a laugh that filled this space earlier in the week, the tilt of a head in a doorway, the way a song was turned up and then down. Those memories rest on surfaces here, as casual and domestic as a coaster left under a glass. They are not claimed or explained. They are simply there, evidence of closeness that does not demand definition. That kind of warmth, that unremarkable, chosen closeness, sits alongside you now like an extra cushion. It does not press, it supports quietly. You allow yourself to notice how small gestures carry more weight when no one is keeping score of them. There is no rush in the light. The lamp glows in its steady way, and the shadows grow and shift imperceptibly. You become aware of the little sounds the apartment makes, a radiator expanding in a neighbor's building, the soft creak of pipes, a distant laugh that means nothing in particular, and therefore everything. These noises do not ask for interpretation. They are like punctuation marks at the edges of your attention, gentle reminders that you are part of a larger, slow-moving world. The silence between them is not empty. It is a holding place where you can notice small things. the weight of the mug in your hands, the uneven hem of the blanket across your lap, the way the pages of the book smell faintly of the place where it was purchased. Your posture eases further, an almost imperceptible sag that feels like permission given by your own body. There is comfort in the ordinary alignment of a room that does not watch. You run a thumb along the spine of the book, feeling the worn gloss where others have held it, the way the text has indented the paper. Time uncoils in soft loops here. Moments do not have to produce anything. They are allowed to exist as they are, quiet, unhurried, a sequence of small acknowledgments of presence. The space holds these moments in a gentle way that never requires explanation. That kind of keeping is a form of care you recognize because it mirrors the ways you have kept others, steady, unobtrusive, reliable. You notice details you tend to miss during busier hours. The slight discoloration on the wooden table where a candle once sat. The faded spine of a guidebook you leaf through now and then. The way the lamp's light throws a thin halo on the wall. They are small map points to a life that is not staged. A life in which people leave and return. In which things are used and left without fuss. The room keeps these marks without judgment. It feels like a place designed to hold whatever you bring into it. Rest, unresolved, feelings, tiny triumphs, without asking for a performance in exchange. There is a kind of softness now that is distinct from sleepiness. It is a lowering of volume inside your chest, a smoothing over of the edges that have been sharpened by attention during the day. The evening loosens the tautness that comes with being watched, with having to present a version of yourself. Here you are, just one set of rhythms among many quiet rhythms. The drip of cooling tea, the slow traffic, the hush that fills the corners. You let your eyes rest where the light is kindest, and you keep your hands warm around the mug. The apartment continues to do what it has always done. Hold the small ordinary, make room for the unremarkable, and keep you in its soft design. There is no need for anything more than that tonight. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. You notice it first in the way your shoulders ease. The habit of holding them up so that lines read as intentional and readable loosens on its own. There is no one stacking meaning into the way you tilt your head, no one waiting to translate posture into permission or complaint. The room takes this slack without comment. A lamp with a soft, slightly yellow bulb throws a small pool of light over the couch. Outside, the city keeps its gentle, indifferent hum. The window glass holds back a few reflections. A crooked lamp, a stack of books, the rounded edge of the mug you left on the side table. You set your arms along the back of the couch and feel the weight of the day slide sideways. Not because you have a new plan for it, but because there is simply nowhere left for it to perform. It's quiet in a way that is not empty. The quiet carries traces of the day like a sweater that has been folded and set on the armchair, rather than stuffed in a drawer. You can see where the fabric is creased, where a thumb brushed the collar in thought. A second mug sits rinsed and set to the side, not put away with ceremonious efficiency, but still sitting with its partner, a small, honest sign that someone else's presence was considered earlier, and then slid away with courtesy rather than fanfare. A jacket hangs on the back of a chair, loosened at the collar. A book lies open, the spine catching the light in a way that reads, of a pause. None of these things demand an explanation. They exist as quiet evidence of living. There is a particular stillness to unguarded rooms, the kind that doesn't require you to perform politeness toward an imagined audience. You move through it like someone learning a new physical language that happens to be your own. Your steps are slower. You feel the coolness of the air on any skin left exposed. The little change in temperature a kind remark. You lift the mug, not to drink so much as to track the warmth against your palms, and you notice the pattern in a softened way. The faint ring of condensation where it has rested there before, the tiny chip along the rim that keeps its history visible. You set the mug down without aligning it to the lamplight or the edge of the table, which would have been something, once, you were careful to do. Tonight it sits where it will, and the table accepts it. There is a clarity to the absence of performance that is not an answer and not a hollow. It is a space that keeps its own company, allowing you to notice the small things you had been tilting away from. The curtains are drawn just enough to leave a sliver of streetlight, and through that sliver, you watch a slow procession of headlights pass. They are distant, not literal invitations. You listen to the building settling, the quiet creak of pipes, the soft exhale of radiators, the faint footsteps in the stairwell that tell you the neighborhood continues its private choreography. Each sound lands and passes without demanding a reaction. The listening is soft, like turning the pages of a book you intend simply to be in the presence of. You think back on the ways you moved during the day, how gestures were calibrated to be legible, how laughter had a shape chosen because it performed a particular kind of safety. Here, at night, you feel the absence of that shaping as a palpable thing. There is no substitute stepping forward in its place, no new routine arranged to fill the hollow. You might imagine that something would rush in to occupy the room where performance used to live. A habit, a sudden need to curate a new persona. The lure of scrolling until the hours thin into sameness. But for now, in the lamplight, there is only the patient accumulation of ordinary actions. You fold a sweater that has been lying across the back of a chair, and when you set it down, you trace the hem with a fingertip, out of a kind of gratitude for its texture. You do not fold it neatly to meet anyone's approval. You fold it because folding is gentleness to an object that has spent the day clinging to your chair. The playlist is off. Nothing in the room presses for attention. Occasionally you lift a book, read a page or two, then close it and lay it face down, where the cover feels familiar. There is a small note tucked inside, a fragment of handwriting you read earlier, and then index somewhere soft. You do not feel compelled to act on that fragment. You hold it against the inside of your palm, like a small, private pebble, something that was given, carried, and then returned to its quietly visible place. These small objects, the mugs, the note, the unmatched socks in the basket, form a kind of map of a life not polished for an audience. The map is not a refusal so much as an acceptance. Nothing here is being presented, only lived around. At moments you feel the odd, gentle echo of a crowd that is not present. You remember the rhythms of speaking and listening from earlier, the way you adjusted tone and timing so others would have a clearer place to rest. There is no shame in remembering. The memory sits like a candle you once used to read a room, not now needed. The space you inhabit does not require you to relight it. You notice how your face feels softer in the dim lamp, as if the shadows do not scan for meaning anymore. You allow your expression to fall where it wants. It is neither empty nor decorative. It is simply private and permitted to be unremarkable. Everything in the room seems to acknowledge this unclipped state. The couch remembers the shape of your body, a slight sag where you have sunk in before, the cushion that yields without complaint. The lamp throws uneven pools of light that do not demand symmetry. The dishes in the sink are stacked without ceremony, each cup existing in its own small, useful history. These objects are not substitutes for attention. They are companions that neither observe nor judge when you decide to move with less performance. The absence is not a stage waiting for something to take its place. It is a sort of hush that makes room for the unarranged. You find your hands returning often to textures. The soft nap of a throw, the smoothness of the ceramic mug, the paper edge of a well-thumbed book. These sensations are not distractions in the way people sometimes think. Distractions are substitutes. They are reminders of what has been under the pressure of being seen. Touch requires no script. It asks for no interpretation. It is immediate and sufficing. The night allows you to notice how small acts can remain unornamented and still be whole. Washing a cup, straightening the throw, pressing your palms together, and feeling the subtle electricity of warmth. There is no neat resolution in the quiet. You do not find that something spectacular has simply replaced performance with an equally performative relief. What you find is subtler, a slow thinning of expectations, a diminishing of the energy spent on arranging yourself for others. The air holds a faint trace of the outside, the distant wet smell after rain, a faint smoke that might have come from a grill 2 blocks over, and it blends with the clean fabric scent of the apartment. The mixing is unremarkable and precisely unfussy. There is permission, quiet and unadvertised, to remain as you are without constructing a narrative around that remaining. Toward the end of the hour, your thoughts are less directive and more porous. You allow memories and trivialities to slide past like the cars beyond the window. Visible, present, not requiring a stop. You notice how much energy used to go into being legible, into signaling safety, into smoothing edges. Tonight, you only notice that absence. It is not painful. It has the texture of an empty cup you are content to set down. You let the room keep its unassuming order. You let the night be what it is, steady, soft, and sufficiently lovely, and its refusal to demand a performance you no longer feel obliged to rehearse. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. You notice the slowing first as a soft widening of space inside your chest. It arrives without effort, not as a directive you follow, but as a plain fact that unfolds when the light's low and the rest of the evening has folded inward. The lamp on the side table throws a small pool of amber that doesn't need to do anything except exist. The edges of things soften into it. A second mug sits on the coffee table, rim faintly stained. A quiet presence that says someone else had been here earlier in some other hour. The room keeps its small history, a sweater draped over the back of a chair, a book face down with a crease of someone's thumb along the spine, an extra blanket folded and waiting where it always waits. These traces have the same tone as the light, uninsistent, honest. They aren't asking for explanation, they are company. Your attention narrows as if drawn by a low tide. Rather than pulling inward sharply, it feels like the world has agreed to let its focus rest. The window becomes a rectangle of darker glass where faint reflections of the lamp and a few distant headlights mix. Beyond that, the city breathes on a different pace, muffled and safe. There are no demands at the edge of hearing, just the building settling into night and the occasional distant laugh that lands like a punctuation, not an invitation. You notice the pattern of your hands when they rest on your lap, the way one fingers the edge of the fabric on your pant leg without any intention attached. This small habit has no audience but itself, and because of that, it is permitted to be exactly what it is. The air against your forearms is cool in a way that feels familiar. It slides along the skin and meets the warmer soft of the blanket pulled across your knees. The textures in the room are plain, worn in by use, rather than curated for appearance. The couch has that surrendered softness where it remembers the shape of evenings like this. The lamp's light catches peeled paint on the windowsill and a faint smudge where a hand once dragged in thought. Those little marks are not mistakes. They are the residue of having been here, fully, without anything to prove. There is a comfort in that ordinary clutter. A pair of keys lying where someone set them down and forgot. The echo of a single mug's ring on a coaster. A folded letter half slipped under a stack of magazines. They speak of lives that overlap and then move away contentedly, leaving traces that nonetheless count as belonging. Your awareness tightens around smaller things now, like a lens focusing on a corner. The rhythm of the room is slow and coaxing. From the kitchen, the faint scent of something neutral and clean, the kind of smell that suggests a wiped surface, a kettle put away, hovers in the doorway. There's evidence that even the invisible chores were done with care rather than urgency. Plates stacked with a matter-of-fact neatness, a towel folded over the oven handle, the faint dampness of a rag that was used and then left to air. The presence of these small domestic acts is a quiet kind of witness. It holds no spectacle. It does not demand commentary. It simply stands as evidence that the day was lived and then set down. Thoughts arrive like slow ships approaching a harbor. Some carry details from earlier, the texture of a conversation that lingered, the weight of a glance that felt more meticulous than casual, while others are small domestic errands that were never completed. They come and sit at the edge of your attention as neutral passengers. There is no need to fetch them or to send them away. They have no urgency here. The absence of expectation is its own kind of luxury. You allow the tilt of your head to register the faint hum of the radiator in the next room and the shadow it casts across the floor. You notice how the lamp's light makes the threads of the blanket look like a tiny landscape, woven ridges and valleys that could be traced with a fingertip if you wanted, not to solve anything, but to feel texture. There is a sense of private permission in the room that is not noisy. It comes through the simple fact that you can loosen your posture and the world does not lean in to read it. The curtains hang heavy, muffling the outside, creating a soft boundary that keeps the night contained. Outside the glass, the world is a coolness and a distance. Inside, things are tactile. The sleeve of your sweater, slightly pill-lined at the cuff, brushes your wrist and feels like an old friend. You run a hand absently along the arm of the couch and find the familiar dent there, a memory of other evenings when a presence was closer, or when silence itself had been company. Those memories are neither sweet nor bitter. They are simply part of the room's texture, and you let them remain without insisting on a narrative. Time acquires a different grain. It loosens from its usual neat compartments and becomes more like a long, patient ribbon. The clock on the mantel does not hurry you. Its tick is a soft, indifferent companion. There is no need to fill this ribbon with achievement or explanation. The small rituals that make up the evening, washing a cup, folding a shirt, turning a page, are performed because they are pleasing in their simple circularity, not because they are necessary to prove competence or belonging. You find satisfaction in the lack of performance. The world here does not require you to translate your interior for it. It holds a kind of quiet, adaptive patience that is rare and gentle. As your attention narrows further, you find that the soundscape becomes more intimate. The murmur of a distant television in another building is no longer noise, but texture. A third voice in the room that suggests other lives at rest. The radiator exhales in a steady, private cadence. Occasionally, a soft squeak from the floorboards reminds you of the house's long familiarity with being occupied. Each small sound is a reminder that this is a lived space, not a stage. The absence of an audience shifts everything. Movements can be slow and unrefined, gestures allowed to be small and honest. You notice the relief in your shoulders when they drop a fraction, and that in itself becomes a quiet observation to hold. By the time the night has settled fully into its dark, the room seems to contract just enough to hold you comfortably. Your awareness snacks on the little details, the temperature of the air around your neck, the way the light catches on a teaspoon abandoned in the sink, the small, unremarkable satisfaction of a jacket thrown over the chair where it inevitably belongs. Each of these moments is part of a gentle unwinding, not toward any end, but simply deeper into the evening's unpressured cadence. Here, nothing needs to be performed, and the absence of performance is not an absence at all, but a full, quiet presence that allows you to be all the ordinary things you always are when no one is watching. It feels like permission, but from within, tender and unspoken. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. The clock on the oven has stopped being relevant. You glance at it because habit tugs at you, because the digits are an easy way to anchor the evening, and then you look away without deciding anything by the numbers. Time here is a soft thing, like a sweater left on the back of a chair. It weighs and rests and keeps its shape without being counted. The lamp on the side table throws an oval of warm light that pulls over the side of the couch, and the stack of soft clothes you folded earlier, the ones you only half decided to fold so they wouldn't lie in a pile like an accusation. A second mug sits on the coffee table, rim still cool, scent faded and present all at once. The apartment breathes in the small ways old houses do. The pipes shift, the radiator ticks, the building inhales the night and lets it settle. You move through the room in slow arcs. There is no urgency in the way you cross from the kitchen to the living room, in how your hand brushes the curtain and then lets go. The window glass holds the dark like a shallow mirror. The streetlights are distant umbrellas of yellow, and the occasional headlights slide along the glass in a lazy line. Beyond that, the city is a soft murmur. Someone talking at a store, a bus, sighing to a stop, a dog hearing a life only it understands. Inside, the sounds are smaller. The faint hum of the fridge, the whisper of your sweater against your arm, the almost imperceptible scraping of the chair as you shift your weight. Nothing demands explanation. You don't have to account for how you moved through the day or who you showed up as. The walls keep no ledger. There are traces of company in the way a jacket hangs over a chair, not quite folded, its sleeve dangling like it forgot to. Remember an appointment. A book lies face down with a bookmark near the middle. The paragraph you stopped on earlier waits without judgment. You notice the warmth where someone else's body made a temporary map against the cushion, an echo more than a presence. The scent of another's perfume, faint as a memory, lingers for a moment and then loosens itself into the general, placid air. These details are not evidence of performance. They are simple counts of the night's small economies: who stayed, who left, what was shared that didn't need to be named. Your hands find the familiar textures one by one. The lamp's pull chain is smooth. The fabric of the throw feels like the inside of an old coin, familiar and valuable only to you. You run a thumb along the rim of the second mug and feel the tiny ridges in the ceramic. There is a comfort in these close things that doesn't have to be declared. The light is low enough to make the room generous with shadow. It hides the precise, contours and leaves only suggestion. You can be an outline here. You can let the edges blur. Thoughts come and go with no timetable. A sentence from earlier resurfaces, something said in a laugh, a tightness loosened at a table, and you consider it with a softness that surprises you. There are no verdicts being handed out. A small ache in the shoulder, from holding attention for so long, presses and is attended to without ceremony. You lift an arm, let it fall. Notice the relief, like a small exhale. You remember the weight of someone else's hand when it felt like a steady thing, against the small of your back, not performative, not staged. And that memory sits beside the memory of a face you trusted to hear you. These recollections are quiet companions. They don't demand you do anything with them. Sometimes your attention slips into the practical. A dish at the sink, a stray spoon, the way crumbs have arranged themselves, like a faint constellation on the counter. You let these minor tasks rest unfinished. There is no call to polish or correct. The room is permitted its gentle clutter. A folded shirt on the arm of the chair suggests that comfort matters more than presentation in this space. The shirt's lines are softened by being unwrinkled with intention. You leave the small things where they are and find that leaving is, itself, a kind of care. Outside, the night has a way of stretching, as if the map of hours has been taken up and smoothed in your hands until the folds disappear. You don't measure the passage of time by appointments or alarms. There is only the slow elongation of now. A moth circles once near the lamp and then settles on the curtain. You watch the gentle panic of its flutter, and then the patience as it rests. In that small motion, there is a lesson in attending without intervening. You allow the insect to be its insect. Your thoughts are similar, fluttering at first, then finding a place to rest where they will not be interrogated. Music might live here, or it might not. Tonight it exists as the memory of a song that threaded between conversations earlier, a bass line that felt like a pulse you recognized as your own. It doesn't replay, it hangs in the space like a scent. You could reach for the playlist, but instead you keep the quiet. The choice is not a refusal of sound, but a soft preservation of the pause. The night seems to prefer that you listen to other small things. The chairs sigh as you adjust. The soft scrape of your foot against the rug. The way your breath finds a rhythm that is not forced. There is a looseness to your posture that would have been risky earlier in the day. Posture used to be a language, an effort to communicate certain truths or to conceal others. Here, slouched and soft, you don't send messages that must be decoded. The room does not ask you to explain the nuance of your expression. A lamp does not need to be reassured. The house has learned to accept you, as you are in the small, ordinary increments, the way you pour your tea, how you fold a corner of a page, the way you leave a coat on a chair, because tomorrow it will be useful again. The acceptance is mundane and therefore deep. Small rituals untether themselves from obligation and become pleasure. You make tea not because the clock says so, but because the motion of boiling water and waiting is pleasant. Steam rises and collects briefly on the rim of the mug, then disperses. You bring the mug with both hands to cradle warmth that is not requested to be anything more than warmth. The quiet is not empty, it is full of these small acts that have no audience. Each one affirms nothing but allows a gentle steadiness to accumulate. Time keeps unspooling, not forward, but outward, like a pebble dropped into a wide, still pond. Ripples pass and do not collide into endings. There is a feeling that the night could continue like this, indefinitely. A soft loop of being held by low light and familiar things. You might stand and rearrange a cushion, glance at the book again, leave the lamp on, and drift between rooms without urgency. You do not perform for anyone. Even the idea of being watched seems distant and irrelevant. You are allowed to be as unadorned as the laundry on the chair. When you finally settle back into the couch, the city beyond the window seems to have learned the same lesson as you. It has lowered its voice. The apartment is a small island of low light and known textures, a place where nothing has to be proven. You rest there in the honest, unpolished quiet of the night, surrounded by the gentle evidence of a life, lived in pieces that do not need to be explained, and the hours fold themselves around you without edge or insistence. You sit with an afternoon coat folded over the back of a chair, as if its past usefulness were still warm. The lamp beside the sofa throws a pool of light that keeps one corner of the room soft and forgiving while the rest slips into the navy of the evening. Beyond the glass, the street is a smear of orange and cool blue, headlights passing like distant pulses you no longer track. The apartment inhales the night in small, polite breaths. You are here in the middle of it, unremarked and unpoliced by anything outside these walls. There is a mug on the coffee table with a thin ring at the bottom, evidence of an earlier steadying. Beside it, a second mug, half clean, tilts toward a stack of unfolded laundry. The garments are not arranged for anyone's eye. They are draped and waiting, soft shapes that hold the impression of movement. A jacket is slung over the back of another chair, its collar creased from being worn. A small archive of a day that included leaving and returning. Nearby, a book lies open face down, the page's spine softened in the middle like a small surrender. These domestic traces are familiar companions. They do not ask for explanation. They are proof that things happen, here, and then they are allowed to be ordinary again. You notice how your shoulders have lowered since you first stepped through the door. The language that arranges posture, that smooths edges for others, has become less necessary. There is no audience in this room, not in the way there had been earlier, and the quiet has its own manners. It does not demand performance. Instead, it creates a margin where the costume of the day can be peeled away in slow, unhurried motions. You might not be thinking about what any of this looks like. Your attention is more like a hand resting on familiar fabric, tracing the weave without a plan. The loosened shirt, the button left unfixed, the hair tucked behind an ear. These gestures mean only what they mean to you now, no longer edited for the ways they might read in someone else's presence. There is a softness to the room that you recognize as safety. Not dramatic safety, no bolts or alarms, just the reliable closeness of things that have been chosen and kept. A lamp that lives in the corner because it warms the same patch of couch. A rug that has acquired the exact scuff where feet habitually land. The air smells faintly of laundry and a touch of the outside. Pavement, the metallic summer of the city, a ghost of rain that might have passed through the morning. It is a combination that makes the room feel inhabited rather than arranged, and that distinction matters. Inhabited means there is a history of use. Arranged implies performance. Your face feels different in this light. Without the small, constant calibrations, smiles practiced at the edge, tone adjusted, gestures smoothed, you become less a collection of signals and more a presence among objects. The mirror by the hallway is a dull rectangle tonight. You look at it not to prepare, but because it is there, and the brief glimpse of your own profile is an unremarkable part of the scene. There are marks on the wooden table made by a pen dropped years ago. A stain on the couch cushion holds the shape of a spill someone once scripted into apology and laughter. These small imperfections are not failures. They are the proof that life happened and will keep happening without the need for neat narrative. Memory edges into your attention, but not like a spotlight. It is more like a lantern carried slowly, along rooms you have known for years. You think of conversations that have ended and those that have been paused. You remember faces and in the particular way someone's scarf had fallen. You remember the weight of a hand on the back of your own in a crowded place. The reassuring press that meant nothing performance-oriented and everything true. These recollections do not demand to be unpacked. They sit beside the mugs and the jacket, accepted as part of the furniture of your inner life. You hold them without having to produce them on cue. The city beyond the curtains continues its distant private life. A delivery truck hums, then fades. Laughter threads through the night in a place you cannot see. Sometimes a siren travels like a note held and released. Mostly, though, the sounds are granular and softened by the glass. The apartment becomes a listening room where noises arrive as texture rather than emergency. The building itself settles. A slow, domestic creak you would have once edited for dramatic effect, but now notice as the house shifting into its own version of rest. The plaster breathes a tiny sigh. It feels like a solidarity between you and the walls. There is an absence of obligation to define yourself here. That absence is not emptiness, it is a clearing. The shape of you persists, but its edges are less rigid, less outlined by expectations. In this diminished outline, there is relief. You are not being measured against anyone's idea of who you should be tonight. Clothes on the floor become pure warmth against floorboards. Books are read and then left, where falling asleep is not the point, only that you might return to them later or not. The ordinary decision to make tea or not makes no moral claim. The second mug is simply there because another set of hands once reached for it and then left it. The presence of that unused cup is a small witness to a previously shared space, and that witness has no demand attached. You notice the way light gathers on different surfaces. A photograph leans against a stack of records, its frame catching the lamp's glow and softening a face into an indistinct kindness. The records are a history of evenings, grooves that have been trusted to hold sound. A playlist that ran earlier now sits paused like a conversation in the middle of a sentence. You remember the music more as texture, low brass, a voice with quiet gravel, rather than discrete lyrics. Sound that was once aired for other ears now exists in memory, an internal duet with the room. It is comforting, not because it proves anything, but because it acknowledges that the space has been inhabited by more than your own solitary presence. The sensation of being unobserved changes how you move through small tasks. You fold a shirt without thinking about the exact symmetry of the fold. It is folded because folding is a gesture you have always performed at the end of a day, an act that organizes not only fabric but some unruly interior. You might pick up a pen and doodle absently on the corner of a receipt, not because anyone will see the scribble, but because the motion is familiar. The things you do are not curated, they are habitual, generous to themselves, indifferent to scrutiny. They belong to you, rather than to an imagined audience. There is tenderness in the quiet here, a kind of familial softness without ceremony. It is not sentimental, it is practical and unflashy. A blanket tucked over the arm of a chair suggests someone thought ahead to comfort. A scarf left where it would be easy to find indicates that some gestures are meant to be returned to. These details are small acts of care that do not announce themselves. They are the syntax of a private language that recognizes your right to be unperformed. Your sense of self moves like light through gauze. It is present, but diffused. You do not collapse into anonymity. You simply stop highlighting every crease and edge. In the space between thought and small movement, you discover patience for unformed moments. You allow a pause to remain a pause, for the thought to circle gently without needing to land in a tidy conclusion. The room does not hurry you. Time here is not measured by tasks, but by the slow accumulation of small, unremarkable acts. A cup rinsed and left to dry. A phone slid, face down. A window cracked open enough for a cool counterpoint to the lamp's warmth. Night deepens, but it doesn't press. It wraps and cushions. You notice this without being impressed or relieved. It simply is. The soft architecture of the apartment, its habitual objects, its worn paths, creates a domestic shape that holds you. There is no script to follow, no performance to sustain. The world you carry does not have to be summarized or defended. It can spread, unmonitored and welcome, across the cushions and onto the rug, into the small secret corners where identity forgets to be a show and remembers instead to be silent company. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. You keep your movement to the edges of the room, small as the crease in a sleeve, when you fold it back. Careful because the room has a shape tonight that seems to resist sudden changes. The lamp by the armchair throws a warm pool of light across the rug. Its glow is uneven, a soft circle that stops short of the bookshelf and fades into the darker corner, where a stack of magazines leans against the wall. The light is kind in a way that does not ask anything of you. It simply is. You let your hands rest on your lap and feel the familiar weight of them, the not urgent alertness in the fingers that knows how to fold and hold and set down. The night outside the window is a cool sheet draped over the glass, and you notice the reflection of the lamp like a pale moon in the pane. Beyond it, there is the vague suggestion of streetlights and a distant car that moves in no hurry. Its sound a slow smear against the building. There is a second mug on the coffee table, a plain thing with a small chip at the rim. Its presence is ordinary and comforting in a way that does not require explanation. It has been left there by habit more than intention, the residue of another's hand in the curve of the handle. There are folded clothes on the back of the couch. One sweater despite the heat, soft at the shoulders from repeated wearing. The other a shirt with a faint scent that is not yours and is not defined. The garments know how to sit together without drawing attention. They lean into each other like people who have learned the quiet choreography of sharing a space. You move slow enough that the room does not need to react. Things keep their places. The cat, if there was one here earlier, is nowhere to be seen, but you can still see the indent where it slept. A slight hollow in the cushion that remembers pressure. It is a little map of the evening. Your breath occupies its own small geography. Not meditative, not measured, simply present. You become aware of the soft fabric at your wrists, the way it brushes against the skin when you shift. There is the cool edge of the window on your other side, not touching, but near enough to make the air around you hold a gentle contrast. Each of these surfaces feels known, familiar, through repetition, rather than through any special care. It is the steadiness of things that have been lived in, not staged, that makes them feel like company. The lamp casts lazy shadows that move when your head tilts, and in the corner where the light thins, the outlines of books are just a suggestion, spines that have been read and left, pages turned and not necessarily finished. You imagine the weight of one of those volumes in your hand, not to be read now, but to be beside you if the night asks for it. Movement in the apartment happens in small, unremarked ways. A faint clink on the kitchen counter as a dish settles into a pile. The steady, even sound of the radiators a floor below, like a low-registered companion. Somewhere in the building, a door closes. Not the abrupt slam of drama, but the soft, final punctuation of a day's end. You notice how your shoulders have lowered without any ceremony, and how the absence of performance, the absence of the constant scanning for cues, for doneness, has an almost physical shape. It is a kind of release that wears no ribbon. There is no checklist being ticked off, no performance of being relaxed. There is simply the fact of being still enough to notice the small particulars that usually blur into activity. You let your focus expand and then contract like a slow camera lens. The warm mug on the table has a faint ring of steam ghosting above it. Not hot, but not entirely cool, as though the evening has negotiated a comfortable temperature. Its surface is marked by fingerprints, the tiny maps of use that make it yours and communal at once. A spoon lies beside it, slightly bent, a habitual artifact of everyday living. A folded letter sits under the coaster, its edges softened by being handled, its contents private and the way that belongs to nighttime. You see too the small patch on the rug, where light falls brighter because the lampshade leans a fraction more this way than that. None of this asks you to arrange or repair anything. It simply exists, and you feel at liberty to let your attention rest wherever it wants, without obligation. Sounds are muffled and companionable. The city beyond the glass hums like a radio, tuned to a low frequency. Voices you are not part of. Footsteps passing in a rhythm that does not need you. Sometimes a distant laugh will rise and fall and leave no trace. Inside, your apartment holds the sort of silence that is not empty, but full of the soft evidence of life. A folded sweater, the mug, a jacket draped on the chair with a shoulder turned as if the owner will return any minute. There are no entrances expected, no announcements necessary. This is an interior inhabited by the tiny traces of consent, things placed where they are, because someone chose to leave them there without fuss. You find yourself looking at the jacket and thinking of the way it took the shape of the other person's shoulders, the imprint that remains like a memory unspoken. Memory makes itself present in small gestures. You recall the way that earlier, in the light of other lamps and other rooms, you had held a conversation that required you to perform a version of yourself. Chosen words, practiced inflections, visible competence. Now the performance is done, and the performance of not performing spreads through the apartment like a soft blanket. There is relief in it, and there is also a kind of tenderness, not directed outward, but toward the fact of a self that can simply be. You do not catalog what has been said. You do not tidy your feelings into neat parcels. Instead, you let them diffuse into the atmosphere, so that the room itself seems to become the place where things can sit without needing resolution. Your hands find a stray sock on the floor, the heel turned inward, a little universe of cotton that does not demand attention but invites it. You pick it up and fold it, slowly. The action a private ritual, nobody is watching. There is care in the smallness of the fold. The act is not fixing anything. The sock will still be a sock afterward, unchanged in essence but placed with intention that is soft and purposeless. Nearby, a photograph leans against a lamp base, its glass showing an indistinct scene. Faces, or the suggestion of faces, caught in a light you can no longer remember. You do not need to know who is into the photo tonight. It is enough that the image exists in this domestic landscape. Another small proof that life accumulates, and that accumulation is ordinary and safe. As you turn your head, the curtains shift and reveal a sliver of the street below. A late-night shop, a stray bicycle, the predictable pattern of a city that goes on whether you are watching or not. The air that comes through the cracked window carries the faint scent of something seasonal. Damp leaves, someone grilling far away. The faint antiseptic of the subway. It blends with the cleaner smells inside. Linen, a discreet detergent. The gentle musk of bodies that have passed through the room earlier. There is no need to parse these scents into meaning. They are simply part of the atmosphere here. Textures that soften the distance between inside and outside. You feel the room settle with you. The stack of magazines remains where it has been all evening. The lamp's light does not demand more than it offers, and the lingering presence of another mug reminds you of company that was both energetic and quiet in its own ways. The night is neither a promise nor a threat. It is a holding space, an unadorned container shaped by small domestic facts. Movement has become minimal and unobserved, like the slight settling of a mattress at the edge, or the tiny scuff of shoe leather as someone crosses the hall. This is not the end of anything, nor the beginning. It is simply a posture you and the room have adopted together, wordless and exacting in its lack of S. You stay with that quiet symmetry. The light continues to lean across the rug, and in the softer corner, the bookshelf keeps its watch. The apartment holds on to imperfect things, the chipped mug, the unfolded sweater, the faint imprint of another's presence. And in doing so, it offers a particular kind of shelter. You allow yourself to be part of that shelter, not performing, not narrating, simply present in the steady warmth and the cool night that presses gently at the glass. Your breathing, the small movements of fingers and wrists, the minimal adjustments of posture, none of it is noteworthy beyond its existence. It is enough. You let the lamp in the corner hold its steady, uneven glow, while the rest of the room settles into cooler shades. The light is small and patient, catching a soft sheen on the tabletop, where two mugs left from earlier sit a little too close together, one with a faint ring of condensation, the other with a smear of dried tea. They are ordinary things. Their closeness is ordinary reassurance. You notice how ordinary feels like permission tonight. You notice how plain objects can do the quiet work of company, without asking anything in return. Your shoulders have remembered how to loosen without a new task attached. There is a small gap between your shoulder blades where the weight of the day used to press. It breathes out and stays out. Movement feels incidental now. You move a hand out of habit to smooth the corner of a throw blanket that has been tucked and untucked in the same way for weeks. And the action costs less than it used to. Effort thins at the edges like paint that has been rubbed smooth over time. There is no undercurrent of performance here, no pressure to shape or hide, only the dampening of intensity until the room's small noises are enough. Outside the window, a traffic light changes, an indifferent punctuation to a street you do not need to cross tonight. A distant laugh threads through the air and refracts against the glass, small and far away. The curtains hold most of it back, and you appreciate the deliberate privacy they offer. The city is present as texture, a low, regular exhale of life beyond the walls. It does not press in. It is a backdrop that allows the interior to be palpably interior, a place where jackets hang half unbuttoned over the back of a chair because there is no impending occasion. The slight mess is not neglect. It is comfort worn comfortably. You find yourself tracing the rim of the warm mug with a fingertip, a motion that has no purpose and therefore feels like a small extravagance. Fingers map small inconsistencies in the glaze, a nick in the handle where it met the sink once and then was forgiven. The surface is familiar in a way that feels like history, not performance. You remember holding this mug on mornings when the world required a sharper version of you, when conversation demanded a leaner, honed tone. Those days taught you signals and practiced smiles, taught you how to tidy posture so that you fit expectations. Tonight the posture unties itself without fanfare. You allow the memory of earlier effort to exist without needing to alter its ending. There are folded clothes on the arm of a chair, a pair of jeans folded over a cardigan, a scarf laid across them like an afterthought. They look used and ready, less into presentation and more into function. You imagine the hands that folded them, the small pauses and jokes traded across the kitchen table as these same fabrics were folded and refolded. Your mouth curves, not into a full smile, just a recognition that warmth can find its way into mundane tasks. The memory is soft-edged. It rests there as comfort, not narrative. You let it sit. Your legs are tucked beneath you on the couch, and the cushion remembers the indent of your weight. The fabric is threaded with years of small domestic rituals. The scrape of a foot, the spill of a plant's soil when a pot was repotted, the occasional patch of sun where hair has faded fabric over time. You run a palm over the worn spot, and it seems to reply with an easy, predictable softness. The couch does not judge how you arrive, or how long you linger. It is a small, steady thing that receives you. Light throws a warm pool across the bookshelf where other traces of life live in quiet assembly. A stack of books with dog-eared pages, a thin envelope with a short handwritten note peeking out, an unlit candle with a wax impression of many previous burns. These objects are not trophies. They are companions. You notice the way the dust settles differently in the corners now, in places you used to wipe fervently, as if a clean surface could shape the way you were seen. Tonight the dust is gentle and the need to erase it is thin. You watch without verdict as it glows in the lamplight and then gives itself over to shadow. There is a softness to your thoughts now, like a radio turned low in another room. Previously they had been tuned to stations that demanded clarity, arguments rehearsed, impressions curated, a constant monitoring for how you were coming across. Those frequencies have faded. Your mind moves without the old urgency, drifting between images and textures rather than making lists. You notice a photo on the mantle that you have not looked at closely in days. 2 hands half in frame, a wedge of a cake with uneven frosting, the back of a head bent in laughter. You do not analyze the moment. You stay with the warmth it radiates, like a small lamp that does not need explanation. Silence thickens in the way it does when voices have been spent for the evening. Not absent, but reduced to a comfortable undercurrent. It holds without pressure, a blanket that invites but does not force. Within that silence, not much demands to be said. You think of the day's loose threads and let them lie where they will. They are not problems to solve right now. They are items on a shelf, dimly lit, accessible when needed, not screaming for attention. The quiet gives them distance, and you notice how that feels less like avoidance and more like the rest they deserve. You are aware of the small ritual of placing the second mug on the coaster beside the first, the slight ceremony of acknowledging another presence without speaking their name. It could stand for a friend who visited, or a recent call that ended with a comfortable silence, or the routine of sharing space with someone who understands the privacy of leaving a coat in the entryway. The second mug is a trace of chosen family, not declared, simply lived. Its presence calibrates the room. You are not alone in the sense of being minor or exposed. You are accompanied by the evidence of care, and that evidence is quiet. A plant on the windowsill breathes in and out with the slow rhythm of night. Its leaves lean toward the light and then relax away from it, and you watch the motion without judgment. The plant has been tended irregularly. With the same imperfect care, you give your own edges. There is forgiveness in its shape, and you mirror that softness inward. The cool air through the slightly open window brushes exposed arms. It is a neutral touch that reminds you of the border between inside and out. Not a boundary of exclusion, but a transition you have chosen for this moment. Time feels porous. The clock on the wall provides the occasional nudge with its steady tick, a reminder that movement continues, even when you do not rush to meet it. You let the minutes fold into one another, unmeasured by obligation. Your mind is present enough to wander without the compulsion to arrive somewhere specific. If a thought wants to float to an end, it will. If it chooses to hover like a small, quiet bird, you let it be. There is no demand to corral or perform anything for anyone tonight. The atmosphere in the room is private in the way an unwitnessed laugh is private. Safe because no one else needs to catalog it. Privacy feels less like retreat and more like a chosen habitat, a place where you can shed the armor of presentation and find the contours of yourself without an audience. You recognize the comfort in that choice, the ease with which a body and a mind can relax when they are not being attended to by external expectations. You stay in this gentle, unstructured present, noticing textures, temperature, residual sounds. Each small sense is a point of return, a way to rest into the fact of being without performing. The night moves on around you with its muted shifts, and the room holds you with an uncomplicated generosity. You do not do anything grand. You simply are there, and it is enough to notice that the intensity of earlier effort has thinned into a steady, forgiving hush. You sit in the middle of the sofa, with the lamp low enough that its pool of light keeps a polite distance from the edges of the room. The bulbs have been chosen for softness, and their shapes are ordinary. One with a small shade, one with a bare filament that hums quietly in the back near the books. The apartment around you is familiar in the way a well-worn sweater is familiar. Relaxed seams, small phrase, the way it settles differently each time you take it off and put it on. There is the soft weight of an evening that has already happened pressing gently around your shoulders. You notice this like you notice the way the fabric of the cushion conforms to the place your weight has made, like a small map of where you've been sitting over nights and months. There is a second mug on the coffee table already cooling. You can see its ring of steam traces in the dim light, thin and faint, and you find that you care about that trace more as an artifact than a necessity. The mug isn't for anyone now. It's evidence of a shared ordinary that paused and left the room in a gentle hum. A folded jacket rests over the back of a chair, the collar slightly bent where it was shrugged off. Books are stacked in a casual pile, spines facing out, titles half remembered and half ignored. Someone left a postcard face down near the stack, the handwriting a private shorthand that you know how to read and choose not to right now. None of these objects demand anything from you. They keep their own quiet company, and in that, they keep yours. Your body is exactly where it needs to be, with knees tucked under an arm, or legs stretched out toward the low table. The shirt against your skin has a little loose thread along the hem. You imagine finding it later when you fold laundry and decide not to cut it. There is a cool edge of air that slips through the gap at the window, catching the curtain and moving it small as a breath. Outside, a streetlight paints the glass with a distant puddled glow. Inside, the lamp keeps its attentions to itself. You are aware of the difference between the two lights, as if the room has chosen to speak in one voice and the night in another. There is no mirror within reach that asks for an answer. There is no checklist on the fridge that mutters its demands. Tonight, your movements are unmeasured by any audience. You notice the way your shoulders drop, not like a chore completed, but like a long sentence ending in an ellipsis. The muscles remember how to soften without a signal. You watch the pattern of your breath more as an environment than a task. Shallow here, then a little deeper. A rhythm that adjusts itself without commentary. There is a kind of permission in the quiet that isn't spoken aloud, but that lives in the soft patience of the room. A lamp on the bookshelf throws small rectangles of light across the pages, left open overnight. The book you left, face down, is the kind that used to be brought to crowded cafes and held with fingers that remembered to care for it like a fragile thing. Now it lies open near an envelope with a friend's name written on it. The envelope's flap is tucked but not sealed. Perhaps a note was meant to be kept private, or perhaps it was read and then set aside. The paper smells faintly of the city, a wash of rain, a hint of the bakery 2 blocks over, the metallic memory of the subway. You trace the memory of that smell with your eyes more than your hands, allowing recognition to pass through you without the obligation to respond. Across the room, a sweater lies, folded but not perfectly. It is the kind of fold that suggests haste twinned with care. Someone placed it down and thought for a second about smoothing the creases and then chose not to. The fabric bears the slight scent of another person's perfume, not sharp but woven into the threads like a small signature. That scent does not ask you to perform anything. It is simply a presence you can carry in your memory if you like, and if you do not, it will fade in its own time. The sweater is evidence of a night that included company and then returned to its own rhythms. It is evidence of a closeness that did not require choreography. You find your hands resting on your lap, and you notice the smallness of that stillness. They have been active all day, answering emails, negotiating small compromises, smoothing edges where needed. Tonight they are heavy in a way that has nothing to prove. You roll a fingertip along a seam. The houseplant on the windowsill leans toward the glass, as if listening for whatever sounds the city has left behind. Outside, a distant laugh rises and falls. Inside, the sofa cushions remember the shape of you, and the space becomes a quiet archive of gestures. There is a drawer you do not open, containing postcards, a ticket stub, a pressed leaf tucked into a book. You are not compelled to examine these artifacts. They sit like friendly curiosities, gentle in their presence. There is a rhythm to the domestic objects that used to be amplified by self-consciousness. The plates stacked in the sink are honest about their crumbs. They do not pretend to be something else. The crumbs will be there tomorrow, or the day after, and they do not alter your value. The lampshade is slightly dented. A small dent you have thought about fixing, and not. The dent reads to you like a line of history written on an object. These marks and these imperfections are a record, not a problem. You let your attention move across them without inclining toward correction. It is enough to notice the dent, to know it belongs to this space, and you are part of the same ongoing maintenance that has nothing performative about it. You recall, perhaps, a conversation from earlier that hummed like a soft instrument in the background of the day. There were places where you translated yourself for convenience, where language was smoothed, trimmed, or polished to fit an occasion. Those translations do not undo what you brought into the room now. They simply belong to the day. Tonight's air feels uncompelled by the need to rehearse any version of you. You feel the relief as a tactile thing, like a sweater loosened at the neck. You are permitted to exist in the unedited tense, to occupy the soft interruptions between tasks and expectations. The apartment does not read you, it contains you. There is a small stack of mail by the door, a postcard with someone's neat stamp, an invoice, a flyer for a neighborhood event. None of it prompts immediate action. You slide a hand along the edge of the pile, feeling the different weights of paper, the tiny variance in texture. You do not tally obligations. You notice only the quiet variety of things that will wait. There is no urgency in the waiting. Time here has a patience that is not idle. It is companionable. Your feet are bare against the rug, and the fibers are warm from the day's sun and cool in the parts where the shade kept them sheltered. You feel the small prick of a thread against your skin and consider the difference between discomfort that demands attention and discomfort that is merely present. There are many small sensations like this tonight that you allow without ceremony. They exist, and you exist alongside them without making them into a story about yourself. A faint radiator sound begins, the building settling into its own night song. It is a slow exhale that makes the pipes click, in a rhythm that matches your breathing unnoticed. Across the hall, an apartment door closes softly, and the sound is simply another texture. You do not need to interpret it. There is a soothing ordinariness in these small domestic noises, an acceptance that nothing needs to be polished into meaning. You let your shoulders curve in towards your chest, in a gesture that is neither retreat nor display, simply a neutral shape that is yours. You think of no performance to put away. There is simply the gentle lowering of an instinct that had kept you prepared for observation. Your posture changes in a way that feels private and necessary, as if the body remembers how to stop pretending to be translucent. The room offers no applause and no judgment. It offers softness, the lamp's warm circle, the couch's forgiving give, the way a vacant glass catches and holds the last twinkle of streetlight. Everything in the apartment is aligned with the same low-key truth, that things can be as they are without that needing to mean anything about you. Here, in the quiet domestic geometry of evening, your body is allowed to be exactly what it is. There is no alternative version to maintain, no persona to patch or highlight. The night encourages an economy of attention, a narrowing to ordinary, unornamented presence. You notice the small pleasures that require no audience, the weight of the cushion, the shape of the mug, the softness of a sleeve under your palm, and you keep them like small, warm objects in a pocket. They are enough to fill the room without asking anything more of you. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. You sit in the low arc of the lamp, the warm bulb throwing a soft oval across the rug and the front of the couch. The rest of the room keeps a private kind of dim. The corners are a subtle gradient that the light doesn't bother to map. You notice the shape of the couch more than its color tonight. The way one cushion has sunken in along the seam where hips have settled before. The faint patch of fabric that is smoother from being rubbed by hands. The edges that remember where someone once rested an arm. It all feels ordinary, lived in, not arranged for anyone's gaze. There is a second mug on the coffee table, half a cup of cold tea still clinging to the rim. You do not think of it as evidence, only as a small companion. The ghost of a habit or an offered drink that wasn't claimed. Nearby, a jacket hangs over the back of a chair, sleeves folded at the elbows, as if they had been shrugged off, with the same quiet gesture that slips the weight of expectation from your shoulders. A scarf is folded on the arm of the sofa, the fibers relaxed and not trying to be anything but what they are. The scene has the easy disregard of a space where nothing needs to be performed. The residue of being seen hangs in the air at first like a scent you can't name, pleasant, domestic, familiar. Voices you absorbed earlier are now only a texture, like the distant coarse hum of a refrigerator that keeps steady time. A laugh appears as a memory you could brush with your fingertips if you wanted to, but you find you do not. It has softened into a warmth behind your chest, the sort of warmth that doesn't ask for attention or response. You feel neutral toward it. Nothing tugs at you. You are simply present with the echo. Outside, the night is cool and steady. The window glass shows the streetlights as pale coins, and the occasional car, as a slow, deliberate line of light. Beyond those, the city breathes in long, patient cycles, an occasional far-off door closing, the muffled tread of late walkers who belong to other stories. Inside, the curtains are drawn enough to keep the room private but not small. The fabric collects the night sound and rearranges it so it is no longer intrusive. It is a careful, respectful dimness that makes the room feel like an interior in which secrets are ordinary and ineffable. Your hands rest on your thighs, the skin warm against soft fabric, nails pale crescents, familiar territory. Fingers move, only to smooth a wrinkle in the blanket beside you, almost absent-mindedly. The gesture more about texture than purpose. The blanket is light and worn, and the places you reach for most often. Its weave is slightly loose from many nights of being folded and unfolded, shared and rewrapped, used and later ignored. It smells faintly of detergent and the night air that found its way in earlier. Nothing in the scent insists on significance, it is simply a record of use. The room holds traces of other nights as well. A stack of books on the coffee table leans like someone who knows it's going to be there for a while. A small pile of folded clothing sits on a chair, with the casual dignity of things that are ready to be claimed, not hidden. There is a postcard tucked face down between the pages of one book, edges softened, the handwriting on its back familiar enough to be private but not charged enough to prick. You appreciate the quiet anonymity of that card, an intimate object that still belongs to the gentle realm of ordinary life. Your breathing is unremarkable. It is not a rhythm you analyze, only the baseline of being in a body that is warm and unworried. Shoulders are neither lifted nor heavy. They rest as if someone had chosen to place them there, and then left you with them, unstaged. The spine is supported by the couch in a way that allows you to do nothing elaborate. You are here. You are allowed to be simple. There is a softness to the light that begins to ease the edges of things. The lamp's glow catches the silver of a spoon left on a saucer, the faint sheen of a ring set on the table beside a folded napkin, the rectangular glow of your phone screen face down, an island of black in a sea of muted color. Notifications exist, but do not demand. The silence around the phone is like a pause between heartbeats, expected, comfortable, and not empty. You notice that you have no desire to lift it, to see who reached out, to parse the fragments of others' days. The absence of curiosity is not dullness. It is an unassuming contentment with the present stillness. Your posture gives way to small, unpremeditated shifts. One foot slides farther out from beneath the blanket. Your sleeve has been tugged up slightly, exposing an arm that meets a draft, coming from the window. The cool touches that skin and does not insist on attention. It is, like everything else in the room, a gentle presence that does not demand performance. You feel no necessity to explain your reactions to anything, to justify how you occupy the space, or to align your expressions with anyone's expectations. This is an ease that does not need a reason. Memory of the earlier evening comes in small, neutral fragments, a particular laugh that lingered too long, the warm press of shoulders in a crowded doorway, the way someone's coat smelled of autumn. Those moments were observed and reciprocated in their own time, and are now part of the room's quiet inventory. They do not weigh or pull. They sit like ordinary objects you can choose to look at or not. The emotional residue is fading into a color that feels like the rest of the apartment, soft, neutral, and forgiving. Nothing feels urgent, nothing needs to be sorted. The quiet is restorative in a manner that isn't about fixing things. It simply exists like a well-kept space that welcomes you without stakes. Your mind is afforded the luxury of unfocused attention. It notices how the lamp halo catches dust motes in slow rotation, how the corners of the painting on the wall hold a shadow that seems to move with the lamp's slight heat, how the fabrics in the room differ in texture when your fingertips trace them. There is an easy curiosity, unpressed and non-judgmental, that allows you to explore small details, and then leave them alone. There's a kind of companionship in these objects and traces. A mug that is not yours, but was left as though it belonged. A scarf that smells faintly of someone who sat here earlier and is now gone. A cushion pressed in the place where conversation paused. Their presence affirms nothing loudly. Instead, it confirms a shared history with low-key, accepting gestures. The domestic familiarity here is quiet, but intimate. An atmosphere made of small, consistent acts of care that require no performance. The night outside deepens. The building settles into its habitual creaks, and even the radiator's soft murmur seems like an old friend who speaks in reliable intervals. You are not restless. There is no need to plan or explain. You hold a slow, neutral feeling, the kind that lets sensations come and go without cataloging them. The residue of being seen is no longer a bright afterimage. It dissolves into the same gentle light the lamp provides, blending in until it becomes part of the room's texture. You remain in that warm pool of light, attentive but not busy. The evening narrows to these small, precise details and the large, comfortable emptiness between them. Time has softened into rhythm. The space around you is private and ordinary, and entirely yours to inhabit without ceremony. In that unadorned steadiness, nothing asks for explanation, and nothing requires proof. The room keeps you as you are, simple and unobserved, contained in a night that is calm and unbothered. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. You sit very still, or you let your body arrive at a kind of stillness without making an effort to hold it there. The lamp by the couch is on its low setting, the bulb throwing a kind of forgiving light that pools and softens the corners of the room. There is a second mug on the coffee table, cooled now, with a faint ring where it has been set down before. It is not a statement. It is a presence, a gentle trace of someone else's hand, or of your own earlier company. The fabric of the throw over your knees is familiar, slightly pill-soft where your fingers have been, a memory in texture rather than sound. Outside the window, the city exhales in long, distant rhythms. An engine passes. Someone laughs far away. A light blinks across the glass and is gone. None of it presses. None of it requires you to be anything other than the quietly present thing you already are. The apartment holds the evening like a small, private garment. Jackets are draped over the back of chairs, with an easy disregard that would have felt reckless earlier in the day, when you were thinking about how you looked, how you must present. Now the hang is casual, a testament to usefulness rather than image. There are books stacked in a way that suggests they were taken down and reconsidered and left again. Not curated for display, but kept, because they are useful at odd hours. You notice the small scar on the corner of the wooden table, where something heavy met it long ago. It is a familiar imperfection, an ordinary mark, that the light falls into without insisting on an explanation. The air has the mild, clean scent of fabric washed and windows opened at midday. Something floral from a neighbor's plant wafts in now and then, as if the world outside and the private world inside are having an easy conversation through the glass. You move slowly enough to hear the soft friction of fabric against skin. The sleeve of the sweater you're wearing has slipped up and left a cool band on your forearm. There is no urgency to adjust it. The coolness is part of the composition of the night. Your hands rest on your lap or against the armrest. They are a familiar landscape, practiced in small domestic tasks and gestures that mattered earlier, and that now matter in a quieter register. The hum of the refrigerator, the building settling into its own rhythms, the muffled steps from the hallway. These are companionable sounds that outline the room without crowding it. Silence here is not the absence of everything. It is a soft net that catches the smaller noises and lets them be small without needing to be explained. There are traces of the day that read like a ledger of ordinary presence. A jacket folded over a chair, A paperback open to the middle with a bookmark shoved in, a pair of glasses left to one side, fingerprints on the window glass where someone leaned to look out and then changed their mind. These things do not speak, they suggest. They indicate motion and return, like punctuation marks in the text of your night. The lamplight finds them and makes small, loyal companions of them. You do not catalog them with an inner critic. They are simply there, and that is enough. Your thoughts come and go with the same unobtrusive cadence. They are not sharp right now. They have been softened by the dusk, by the simple act of being in a room that wants you to set down performance. You remember moments from the day, a conversation that hummed with attention, a look that lingered longer than necessary, a small misstep that you would have worried over before, now passing by like a cloud. Memory is not a file to be polished at this hour. It is a gentle scroll of images and sounds that do not demand polishing. They are real without needing to be attended to. You let them move through you, like a slow current at the edge of a still pond, and you notice the way your chest makes room for them without tightening. There is a quiet safety into the domestic things around you. The presence of 2 mugs, 2 jackets, the way the pillows have been shifted. These are softer signals of belonging and shared life, not declarations. They imply a chosen kinship that is as practical as it is tender. Someone to share a kitchen table with. Someone who knows the coffee preference and lets it be. Someone who will reach for the grab of a sleeve when the room gets too cool. Even if you are alone in the room, these traces hold a kind of warm evidence that you are not the sole author of the space. The apartment bears the gentle weight of other people's habits, without needing to explain the why or who. That unasked for knowledge is restful. The window frames the night. In the dark beyond, shapes are blurred and softened by distance. The city's lights do not demand attention. They breathe in and out in slow cycles. A plane etches a quiet, white trail, high above, indifferent to the smaller troubles below, and you find that small indifference consoling. The world beyond the glass is broad and patient and not focused on you. In that indifference, there is a kind of freedom. You are permitted to be small, to be quiet, to not perform. The room contains you, and the distance outside contains everything else without weighing on you. Your breathing finds a natural pattern that is neither forced nor shallow. Without looking for it, your body knows how to rest when it is safe to do so. There is a slow acceptance in your limbs, an easing of the hold you keep on posture and presentation throughout the day. The vulnerability that used to require armor can be folded away into a drawer without the drawer being latched. It is simply acknowledged and set down. Your muscles soften in a way that does not mean surrender, but means recognition. Tonight is for being held by quiet rather than held in check by watchfulness. You think of the small rituals that used to mean so much when you were younger. The careful arrangement, the practiced readiness for how others might see you, and you notice how unimportant they feel now. There is a new economy of gestures where fewer movements achieve what used to take elaborate performance. A shared look has replaced a speech. A shorthand has evolved that does not need translation. These patterns are intimate, not because they are declared, but because they are known. And that knowing wraps around ordinary life the way a soft blanket wraps around shoulders. There is no need for conclusions tonight. The night spreads wide and patient, lanes of darkness and lamplight that do not hurry toward anything. You can regard the small objects of the room as old friends, each with its quiet temperament. You let your gaze rest without probing. You notice the way the shadows pool near the bookcase, how the curtain moves at intervals as a breeze slips by. The stillness is not a thing accomplished. It grows gently, without ceremony. You watch it arrive like light through clouds, steady and unforced. Time takes on a gentle elongation in this hour. It is not a thing to be measured, but a texture to be felt. The feeling that nothing needs to be proven as like a warm draft that circulates through the space, touching everything lightly and leaving it in a softer state. It is not an answer to anything. It is simply the present tenor of the room. You are here, the room is here, the night beyond the glass is here, and the combination of these presences is a continuum of small, unspoken support. You do not resolve anything, nor is anything resolved for you. There is a tenderness in that absence of resolution, a permission to sit with things that are unfinished without being erased. The living room keeps its light, steady and unassuming. The objects do not demand, the night does not press. You exist in a field of quiet that is patient enough to hold the remainder of your day. The unsated words, the softened edges of what you tried to be. In that patient holding, something loosens. Not a solution, not a conclusion, but the simple allowance of rest within reach. Uncomplicated by performance, fully permitted by the room and by the night. The lamp in the corner throws a low, honest circle across the floor. It doesn't try to flatter the room. It simply keeps things visible enough for you to move, without the small theatrics of bright light. There is a softness to the shadows where the cushions meet the arm of the sofa, the kind that collects the hours like a slow blanket. You notice the little seams of daily life, a second mug cooling on the coaster, a pair of socks folded over the back of a chair because they were taken off with more relief than precision, a stack of books whose spines tilt toward one another as if they prefer proximity. Nothing is staged, nothing is asking for an audience. You sit with the coffee, cooling at the edge of the mug, tracking the thin, dark line where liquid meets ceramic. The room keeps its small size, the building settling, the faint hum of someone moving down a distant hall, the window glass muting the city into soft, horizontal tones. Outside, a patch of sky holds the kind of night that makes colors stop trying. Inside, textures do the work of being human. The couch giving at familiar spots, the throw that always ends up across the back. Without plan, the lamp's pull chain that hangs unevenly because no one fussed with symmetry. Each of these details is ordinary, and it is enough. Earlier, you held a version of yourself that was conscious of how you might be seen. You remember the way you arranged your shirt, the half-calculated laugh, the moments of attention when your posture became a message. The memory of it comes now as a warmth rather than tension, like the glow left in a room after someone turns away. Not cold, but simply quieter. The edges of performance have folded inward. What remains is the body that moves through rooms and sinks back onto familiar cushions without checking for a mirror. Being visible today required you to calibrate and to offer pieces of yourself. Tonight, there is no tally. The day doesn't demand an addendum. There is a small table by the couch that holds domestic evidence. A folded grocery list with a corner creased, a stray hair tie, a pair of glasses set, lens side down because the lens has always been polite. Nearby, a jacket is thrown over the arm of another chair, sleeves facing out like an open palm. It reads like the aftermath of closeness rather than the imprint of an event. Someone had been here, or you had been somewhere, and now warmth remains in the fibers of the room. The second mug is what lingers in the mind. Its presence is a trace of company, a residue of conversation. The subtle claim that spaces carry more than they appear to at first glance. You move with the kind of slowness that knows it needn't convince anything. Fingers trace the rim of the mug without performing curiosity. The fabric of the throw catches at your wrist. It gives. The light is low enough that imperfections soften into habit. And you like the softness because it isn't an effort to appreciate. A curtain billows at a small window when a night breeze slips through, and the movement is small enough to feel like a private thing between the room and the dark outside. City beyond is patient. Its distant life is a steady, anonymous rhythm that doesn't ask for attention. Memory arranges itself without pressure. You find a pocket of old laughter in the creases of a cushion, a soft grin held in the corner of a sentence you heard hours earlier. a glance that didn't need spelling out. These remain as small relics, unpolished, true. They are not trophies. They are not proof for anyone. They simply are, like a lamp left, lit on purpose. There is relief in that. Not the quick release of solutions, but the steady, breathable relief of no longer performing for an imagined audience. Time is present, but mercifully unhurried. You let your posture change without ceremony. The shoulders, once alert, drop by degrees. Your hands rest. They may wander to the back of the couch, to the soft material of a sweater folded over the arm. You notice the way the sweater holds the faint scent of the outside world. A clean thread of rain or pavement or last night's walk, not sharp, not defining. It is the scent of having lived, of having moved through places and returned. The air carries coolness against the upper arms where sleeves end. The contact is a small, welcome contrast to the warm pool of light on the rug. There is private safety in this domestic quiet. The room is a small covenant with itself, an agreement that no one will call you to perform tenderness or cheer. The privacy feels like a well-insulated room, where small things, folded bills, a key left on the table, a photograph tucked behind a stack of postcards, are allowed to exist without being explained. You are permitted to be both palpable and modest in your existence here. You are permitted to hold on to the residue of earlier days without needing to tidy it into narratives. Your thoughts do not race. They are present like soft objects placed on a shelf, undemanding. A memory might sit there a while, a phrase, a tone, and then settle deeper into the grain. Nothing needs immediate action. The evening's tasks are rhetorical, not imperative. There is the faint understanding that some things remain unfinished, and that such incompletion is not a failure, but a state of being. An ordinary truth that doesn't require correction. The room accepts that, and, in accepting it, gives back a measure of hush. Sometimes you find yourself smiling at the ordinary choreography of the apartment. The kettle, resigned to an earlier role, sits with its lid slightly ajar on the stove. A plant leans toward the window like a listener, leaning in to catch a fragment of sound. A lamp on the bookshelf has one bulb that glows ever so slightly warmer than the others, and the shelf holds postcards with handwriting that reads like another's hand in the room. These are tokens of domestic fidelity, small, repeated gestures that make a living space more like a home. They are quiet, not showy. They are intimate, not exclusive. There is a softness to your awareness that wasn't there in the bright hours. You notice how your voice, when it leaves you, requires no performance. It simply exists in the space and then settles. You are not being measured, not scoring yourself against an internal rubric of presentation. You are just a person in a room where objects have been allowed to accrue their own stories. The lamp keeps the edges mellow. The window frames an expanse of night that is both close and indifferent in the best way. In this indifferent night, the city continues its slow movements, someone laughing down the block, a dog walker pausing at an intersection, and these noises are companions rather than summonses. You allow time to be porous. You notice the way thoughts blur at their edges, how feelings do not need precise naming. They hover like dust motes in the lamp's glow, soft and private. There is a minimal, deepening hush to your internal world. Not every feeling wants to be poured into words. Not every sensation needs translation. The room seems to agree, holding the space without commentary, without wanting to tidy what you leave, scattered on the cushions. At some point you rise and move through the apartment with familiar slowness. The light from the hallway pools briefly at your feet like a warm spill. You straighten the throw, not because it needs perfection, but because the motion is pleasingly ordinary. The jacket on the chair is nudged inward as if persuaded to wait. In these small acts there is no performance, only the intimacy of living. Tasks done in the neutral glow of ordinary need. The apartment listens without judgment. Back on the couch, you fold a page of the grocery list, to keep it gentle with the rest of the room. You return the glasses to the table in a place that doesn't demand precision and savor the small, unremarkable alignment of things when they are allowed to be as they are. The room collects your presence like a soft thing collects warmth. There is nothing left to perform, and in that absence there is a steady, low hum of belonging that requires no announcement. You settle once more, not asleep, not striving, simply contained by the lamp and the curve of the sofa, and the small evidence of a life shared, partial and real. The night beyond the window breathes slowly, and the domestic light keeps a patient watch. You remain there, part of the quiet company of things, allowed to be both unadorned and quietly witnessed by the room you have made. You sink into the evening like a soft garment, the way fabric drapes without thought, and the room answers in quiet ways. The lamp beside the sofa has been dimmed one notch more than usual, so that the light pools low and warm, not demanding attention, only making shapes gentle. Shadows keep their edges soft against the wall, where a stack of books leans, and the curtains are drawn so the glass is a dark mirror, holding back the city's small, patient movement. Outside, headlights move like slow stitches. Inside, the kettle's small hiss from earlier is a memory worn smooth. The air feels cooler near the window, touching the inside of your forearms like a hand that doesn't require a response. You notice small things without needing to hold on to them. A second mug sits on the coffee table, ringed at the bottom where tea cooled, and left a faint bloom. Its presence is a quiet fact, neither explanation nor absence. A cardigan, folded and left on the arm of a chair, keeps the shape of a shoulder it once warmed. The cushions have settled to the curve where you last leaned. You let your fingers rest against the seam of the sofa, feeling the familiar give of the fabric, the slight roughness where the threads have met many small nights. Time becomes a soft surface you can run your palm across. The exact hours are less like markers and more like textures. Your thoughts arrive and depart with the lightness of gusts through an open door that's been closed for a while. They are present, then pleasantly diffuse, the edges of plans and recollections blurring into one another. A line from earlier conversation floats up like steam and dissolves before you try to hold it. Another memory, gesture, laugh, the tilt of a cup, passes with no insistence. Things that once demanded careful shape now sit as soft impressions. You are aware of awareness itself becoming quieter, a lamp dimming inside your chest until it is more a warmth than a glow. The effort of being seen, of arranging every expression, of performing small calibrations, loosens. It is not replaced by something louder. It simply is absent, and the room seems to exhale in kind. Light catches on the rim of the window and favors a small dust mote in a way that feels private, as if attention has chosen a single, inconsequential thing to rest on. You notice the way the lamplight makes the surface of a wooden table look like a miniature field, soft grain and past small knocks and spills, every mark a map of ordinary life. Fingers trace that map without moving from their place, following grooves and temporary scars like reading a familiar story, without the need to get to the end. There is a particular peacefulness in this low-level noticing, the kind that does not demand comprehension. It is enough that you see, that your gaze lingers without obligation. The apartment breathes around you. A radiator ticks quietly and methodically, not urgent but persistent, like a calm heartbeat beyond awareness. The sink is a pale pool of light where a spoon rests. Dishes are stacked and patient, bearing the soft residue of a meal that wasn't hurried. A jacket draped over a chair leans as if it had simply decided to be comfortable there. Its pocketed interior holds the faint scent of something outside, rain or the city, a memory of pavement and distance. The perfume is faint enough to be a suggestion, a note rather than a chord. It speaks of small, shared itineraries without needing words. You rest, with the knowledge that this room has room for you in all your relaxed states. The furniture remembers your form and accepts slight changes. An arm left exposed, a leg tucked up, a head supported differently. There is no choreography here, no precise folding of limbs to make a neat silhouette for watching eyes. The light catches on a ring you wear, or on the threadbare spot of a sock, and neither catches your judgment. Things are simply as they are, ordinary and forgiving. The apartment's noises are the ambient punctuation of life continuing. A neighbor moving softly in her apartment, a distant dog single alert, a siren briefly considered and then unattended. None of it pierces. It merely colors the quiet. You notice how the body learns to cease performing in stages. Muscles that had tensed through the day, neck, shoulders, jaw, release their practiced rigidity as though remembering a word, then losing it again. Breath finds a softer cadence by its own accord, not from a plan, but from the here and now's gentle architecture. There is an ease that belongs to private rooms, the liberty to let expressions soften without watching for someone to read them. Your face, free of its daytime shaping, settles into a shape known only to you and these low lights. The mind's commentary thins. Urgent lists and future plans become like radio stations fading at the edge of reception, present enough to be recognized, distant enough that tuning is optional. You think of nothing in particular, and then of a dozen small particulars that mean nothing when strung together. The way a neighbor folds their laundry with precise rhythm, the pattern of rain along the lip of the gutter, a line from a song that isn't on any playlist, but exists somewhere in the night. None of these require a verdict. They are textures on which attention can hover, experimenting with softness. Memory arranges itself in uncluttered piles. Moments stack without urgency, a hand held at a busy crossing, the quiet exchange of keys, the unremarked gesture of someone tucking their hair back. These are not presented as achievements or tests. They persist as subtle furnishings in the mind's room. Each is present without being weighted, like small lamps in distant rooms, whose light you notice but do not enter. There's a comfort to this decentralized warmth. The intensity of the day's visibility, the careful choreography of self, has been gently shelved. In its place, there is a domestic quiet that allows feelings to exist without demanding placement. Your attention sometimes wanders to the small, practical things. The unfinished cup, the book open, face down where a page creased under a thumb, the slight dent in the living room rug. You look at them like a companion looking over an old map. Familiar roads, no pressure to follow. You allow your gaze to soften until the lines and edges blur and become suggestions. The room becomes an impressionistic painting you could stand before for a long time and not tire, where details recede into tones and moods rather than facts to be examined. Sound is distant and kind. The city breathes in the background. The soft, irregular rhyme of far-off traffic, a laugh carried through an open window, the faint hum of fluorescent light somewhere else in the building. Those noises are gentle punctuation to your evening rather than calls to action. They mark continuity more than they command attention. Inside, the hush of the space folds around you like a familiar blanket. The fibers have caught remnants of many evenings, cooking spices, the smell of fabric softener, a faint undertone of cold air at the window's edge. These scents do not declare anything. They exist like memories of other nights, comforting not by novelty, but by repetition. There is a particular generosity to this slowness. It does not push you toward revelation or change. It offers a kind of permission you did not need to ask for, the permission to be undecided, to let thoughts dissipate, to hold moods that are neither urgent nor dramatic. In this room, the expectation of performance has been turned off without fuss. Your movements are smaller, quieter. Gestures directed only at comfort. You fold the cardigan more slowly than you once would have, smoothing its shoulders with casual care and placing it where you know it will be easy to find tomorrow. You don't arrange it for anyone else's eye. At the edges of your attention, the world continues in low motion, and inside, the softening continues. The map of the day is no longer a checklist, but a series of soft sketches, worth glancing at but not worth tracing to conclusion. You remain present to the feeling of this place: low light, lived surfaces, small scents, letting the night be exactly what it wants: patient, muted, and generous with quiet. Welcome to this quiet place where you don't have to explain yourself. The lamp beside the armchair throws a small, honest pool of light across the room. It is the kind of light that does not ask for attention, simply settles where it will, and then stays. You sit where you sat earlier, one elbow on the arm, one hand loose on your thigh. The sweater you took off earlier folded over the backrest in a way that makes the chair look inhabited rather than staged. The other mug, the one you did not finish, rests on the windowsill. Its steam is gone. A ring of dried tea at the bottom is a gentle proof that time has moved in small increments and kept nothing dramatic in its pocket. Beyond the glass, the night is cool and distant. The city makes soft decisions far away. A light going out, a car slowing, a voice that fades into the architecture. And none of those decisions press here. The window holds a faint reflection of the lamp and of you, easy and unobserved. The reflection softened at the edges like memory. Curtains hang loose on one side, a crease where someone's hand once pushed them aside, the curtain rod, still humming a faint note from the day. You notice details without being obligated to narrate them. The seams of the cushion, the way the rug gathers under the coffee table, the slight indentation in the sofa, where someone else slept over and left their presence as a reassuring imprint. There are traces of company that do not require attendance. A folded shirt on the back of a chair carries a scent that is not yours, familiar enough that you could place it in a season, but not urgent enough to demand identification. A book lies face down, bookmarks sticking out like a quiet flag, pages softened at the edges by repeated turning. A thin blanket is draped over the arm of the chair, the kind that a friend gave you 3 winters ago. Its colors have softened in the wash, and its pattern sits in the room, like an old joke that still makes you smile. These things are not trophies. They are the residue of living, small acts of mutual care without ceremony, an extra spoon left in a jar, a note folded and tucked into a cookbook. They are evidence of chosen rhythms rather than public performance. Your breathing is steady, but not counted. The texture of the sweater on your bare forearms feels like a familiar language, each thread a vowel you can relax into. You rest your fingertips on the fabric of the cushion beside you and feel the slight give where someone else once leaned. The memory is a warmth without demand. The lamplight finds the faint lines around your hands and makes them gentle to your own eyes. You do not prepare for display. You do not tidy an edge to make it pleasing to someone else's glance. The room is allowed to be ordinary. In that ordinariness, there is a softness that does not clamor for explanation. Sounds carry at a distance. The building settles with a patient creak. A radiator sighs, a neighbor's music has concluded, and left only a residual chord in the stairwell. Occasionally a passing car opens, the night like a slow chapter, and then closes it again. Inside you, the day loosens its grip. Not because you decide it should, but because there is no audience left to witness the day's performance. You have been seen earlier in ways that required posture and polish. Those ways are not useful here. Here, the muscles around your mouth let go of the rehearsed expression. The jaw softens, neck and shoulders relax into the shape of the chair. You are permitted to be the version of yourself that has been quietly consistent for years. the one known only to the rooms you return to, and the people who enter them without fanfare. There is a small lamp on the bookshelf that throws amber rectangles over the spines of books. You look across and recognize titles by their silhouettes. A familiar author there, an old poetry collection, a stack of magazines with corners thumbed. A postcard pinned to the board over the desk shows a place you once visited. The handwriting on the back is brisk and affectionate. These things do not explain you to anyone else, and they do not need to. They are private coordinates in the map of this life. The presence of objects that speak to a past intimacy is enough. They are not invitations to narrate, only gentle confirmations that your world contains threads connected to other hands. You notice your feet, toes tucked into the edge of a rug, skin cool against the fibers. The texture of the rug is a companionable resistance. The floorboard under the coffee table remembers the path made by routine. The slight hollow next to the legs of the table from years of mugs set down in roughly the same place. The air here tastes like clean sheets and the faint, pleasant residue of rain that came earlier. Faint and forgiving. If you tilt your head, you can sense the outline of the building behind yours, the silhouette of a rooftop, a neighbor's light still on. Those lights are distant, not invasive. They are other people's private nights, like yours, that go on at the same hour, without intersecting unless they wish to. There is comfort in the small things done without ceremony. You think of the way you folded the laundry earlier, not carefully to show anyone, but simply because the act itself is restful in its rhythm. You recall making tea and forgetting it briefly, the way steam cooled in a soft halo above the mug. You remember exchanging a look across a room with someone earlier in the week, a glance that did not need to be explained to be understood. Those moments are not plotted across your chest like medals. They are quiet stitches that keep the garment of your day from unraveling. They do not demand proclamation. They only exist, and their existence is enough. You consider the concept of performance like a worn coat hung on a peg. It is ready to pick up, to be put on when necessary. Bright colors, features sharpened for an audience. But tonight the coat hangs undisturbed. The room has chosen not to be a stage. The mirror in the corner reflects a softened silhouette without critique. The only performance required here is the simple, human practice of being present in a place that does not critique presence. It is a modest relief. Outside, the night keeps its distant pace. Inside, the lamp continues to lend its private light. You allow yourself to exist in the space between motion and stillness, where thought comes and goes like breath, where attention loosens into a kind of patient, uninsistent awareness. There is no need to rehearse a future greeting, to arrange an impression for a later moment. There is, instead, this steady now, the cusp of night softened by a lamp, the folded sweater waiting idly, the unwashed mug keeping the memory of a flavor, the blanket from a friend that smells faintly of yesterday. These are small assurances rather than declarations. You trace the outline of the armchair with your gaze, then let your eyes rest on the shadow the lamp makes on the wall. The shadow is unembellished. It simply sits there as the room's shape, neither flattering nor condemning. You find a rhythm in the ordinary contours of things, a low hum that is as nourishing as any spoken comfort. Everything unnecessary has been set aside, not with drama, but with the quiet competence of a life learned and lived. The night does not demand. It offers a place where performance has been turned down to a low setting, and in doing so, reveals the warm, unadorned texture of what remains. There is a kind of privacy here that feels like a small, well-kept room within a larger city. It does not isolate, it simply shelters. It is a place where you can be subtle, where tenderness has been practiced privately, where the day's visibility no longer requires response. The objects around you, the soft lamp, the cool glass, the chairs that know your shape, all conspire to keep nothing urgent at hand. So you remain in the slow, comfortable duration of night. Time thins at the edges and the room composes itself into a gentle, forgiving presence. Nothing calls for your best or your most performed self. There is nothing left to perform. You do not need to do anything more than be there, in your ordinary posture, in a light that understands how to be kind without comment. The city will continue its distant calculus, and the lamp will continue to hold this small world between two breaths, unpressured and quietly expansive.